But if it's worth the win, it's always worth the fight. It's always worth the fight, yeah. I don't care what you do, but here's a tip for me to you. Look your failures in the eye. Only way to say goodbye. Once you left them from your heart, you could have a brand new start. It's true. It's true. I don't care what you do, but here's a tip for me to you. Look your failures in the eye. Only way to say goodbye. Once you left them from your heart, you could have a brand new start. It's true. Your life could smile to you.
This is Steve Earl, CEO at Done For You Real Estate USA. We'd like to welcome you to our event tonight, and we'll be starting in about 2 minutes.
I've been so many places, I've seen them all with open eyes. Seen islands, open spaces, Serengeti sun slowly rise. All these memories, I hold them near me when I sail the Aegean Sea. But there's one place for me. Take me to the place where I come from. The only place where I really belong. Take me 'cause this voyage seems so long. Back to you. Back to Where streets are filled with people I used to race back home from school. We kids, we never back down. We learn by breaking every rule. Ooh. All these memories. Take me to the place where I come from. The only place that I really belong. Oh, sometimes this road can be so long. Back to you. Sun is rising. I can see the edge of the horizon way out there. One day, maybe I will get to see it rise with you. Take me to the place where I come from. The only place that I really belong. Oh, sometimes this road can be so long. Back to you.
Okay, my name is Steve Earl. I am CEO at Done For You Real Estate USA. I'd like to welcome all of you online first. I'd like to let you know first and foremost just a little bit about those of you who are online. There's about 130 of you, and you've been working at your profession for an average of just over 15 years. You're a saver, you're a planner, and you've begun thinking more seriously about your retirement plans. Like, how are you going to fund your retirement once you stop working? You have about 3.2 children, and you represent 33 different states. So online tonight, there are individuals in 33 states who are participating with us tonight. So I'm excited about that. As far as the room here, I'd also like to welcome each of you here tonight. A little bit about you in this room. You pretty much fall in the same demographics. I don't know if there might be a few anomalies. We got a really young guy right here. Seems like the rest of us kind of fall in a fairly similar category of what I just finished describing. Yes, younger, better looking, that kind of a thing. The biggest difference is, most of you actually live here in Utah. So demographically or geographically, about half of our clients reside in the state of Utah. The other half reside outside of the state of Utah. And so to all of you who came tonight, I would like to welcome you here as well. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the people who work here at Done For You Real Estate USA. They pretty much fall in the same category as all of us in this room. What's interesting is that first and foremost, almost all of the staff are investors first, and then secondarily, they help our clients invest in real estate as well. And about almost 10 years ago, we started this company, and we had 4 goals in mind. Number 1 was to remove geography as a condition of investing in real estate. Secondly, to help our clients invest with a plan and on purpose. That's something that most people who get into real estate don't do, at least not very well. The next thing was to simplify the process of investing in real estate for the common person. For those individuals who have different businesses, maybe you have a day job, investing in real estate can be pretty daunting because it requires some expertise, it requires a lot of time finding, it requires a lot of research and that kind of a thing. And so we wanted to simplify that process. And then fourthly, we wanted to increase the likelihood of success. Investing in real estate is no different than a business. So you all have probably heard the statistic that more than 90% of all small businesses fail within the first few years of being in business. Well, the reality is real estate is no different. Real estate just happens to be a business of investing in real estate. And so we wanted to skew that result and change it from, 90% failure and change that to 90% success. And so you'll hear me oftentimes, like I'll kind of tout, how awesome we are as a company and so on. The reality is it's still a fact that not everybody has an amazing experience in real estate. There's still a small percentage of people who don't have the experience that we wish that they would. So, when we talk about, how awesome we are, I always throw in that little caveat that, we're not perfect, but we have a pretty good game going. So anyways, I'm pretty excited about the fact that over the last almost 10 years, we have successfully achieved these 4 objectives. And now it's all about continuing to refine and do what we do just a little bit better and increase our customer base and really impact more lives for the better. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that we've been able to do and accomplish over the last almost 10 years, a little bit later in the evening. So tonight, we're going to be doing a number of different things. So first of all, we're going to dive into some of the basics of, why real estate and why DFY. So if we ever say the acronym DFY, we really mean Done For You Real Estate USA. At the end of the day, I kind of want us to be like Kentucky Fried Chicken and just be known as KFC because it's such a long name. You all have received some emails, from me personally inviting you to this event. And I had some feedback today. One of our good clients, I won't share her name, she emailed me back and she said, "How did you come up with that atrocious name? Done For You Real Estate USA." She's like, I can't even say it all in one breath. And so it's a little bit of feedback. And my comment is just simply, you know what? We're not the greatest marketers in the world, and that is a reality. However, what we do really, really well. And so we're super proud of what we do and accomplish. And maybe how we kind of market to you and communicate sometimes from a marketing standpoint could be a little bit better. But we're going to jump into some of the basics of why real estate. We're going to provide market updates and market information on all 4 of the markets that we're currently in. Our team, we sent 2 of our project managers and 2 of our acquisition department out to Indiana recently. They took all kinds of video footage. We're all excited about sharing it with you tonight. And none of the video footage worked out. So, we're going to have to do better training with our project managers next time, as far as like how to operate a camera. But we'll figure that piece out. The cool thing is the market is awesome. And our project managers got to know our teams out there a little bit better, and the trust and the confidence between us and between them, it grew. And so it was a very successful trip from that standpoint. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dive and we're going to get granular. When I talk about investing on purpose and with a plan, I'm telling you that is an absolute key when you're investing in real estate. Most people who succeed at real estate, the reality is they succeed by accident. They happen to time the market, or something they don't even know why. They just made a whole bunch of money. They didn't have a strategy. They didn't have a plan. And unfortunately, in that scenario, what often happens is when the market turns, well, all of that success just vanishes, almost instantly. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about today is in utilizing your game plan, your real estate investing game plan. We're going to teach you why it doesn't matter what the market is doing. It doesn't matter if the market's up, whether the market's down, whether it's going up or whether it's going down. Today is the best time to invest in real estate. And we're going to help you understand how that works and how you can invest safely and confidently and with the right strategy. And with that plan, that personalized plan, which the goal is to help you get where you want to get at the point where you're trying to replace your current income. And so that's the ultimate goal. Our strategy is a cash flow strategy. And we'll share super briefly just some of the things that we've been able to accomplish as a company. And then we're going to also share with you this concept of leaving a legacy. And what I mean by that is not what we're going to leave in terms of assets and resources to our kids. There's a saying that my brother-in-law's father has, a very wealthy man, and his goal is to spend his very last dime as he takes his very last breath. He has no intention of leaving his children any assets. However, he has done a masterful job in teaching his children how to do what he did, and that is to be very successful as an investor, as a business owner, as an individual handling his finances. That's something that's very lacking in our society today. I'm going to talk a little bit about leaving that legacy of knowledge, skills, and ability to take care of for our kids and the up and coming generation to take care of their own financial situations. So with that, I'd really like to get started with this evening. And our host for the evening is Kevin Clayson. So the last email that I sent out, trying to, with my wizard marketing skills, incentivize people to show up, I said, hey, if you'll show up tonight, we'll give you a free copy of Kevin Clayson's ebook called Flip the Gratitude Switch. Amazing book. I've had the opportunity to read it. I've given away more than, I think, 50 copies of the book as Christmas gifts this last year to my closest friends and family members because it's such an impactful book. And so Kevin's going to provide you with the link to that downloadable ebook sometime during the night. I'm not sure when he's doing it, but he's going to share that with you. And I hope you'll take a moment to read that book and to share it with those who are most dear to you because it's a phenomenal book. And so Kevin Clayson is actually one of the original founders of Done For You Real Estate. He is an author. He's an accomplished speaker, presenter. He speaks all over the country, and is just a really good guy. It's one of my first requirements when I hire somebody or work with somebody. If I'm going to hang out with you, you just got to be a good guy. And I think that our clients really fall into that category. You're all just such great people, and it's such a pleasure to work with you. And so anyways, Kevin, he's a really good guy. He's just one of those guys that falls into that category. And I think you'll enjoy him tonight, his energy. I've kind of worked with him a little bit to, tone down the energy just slightly, right, Kev? Absolutely. No dancing, anything like that. Very professional. No, Kevin is awesome and amazing. You're going to enjoy him throughout the evening tonight. So without further ado, if you wouldn't mind bringing up Kevin Clayson.
About a good guy, it's that one right there. How many of you know Steve Earle and have had a chance to interact with him and talk with him on more than one occasion? Anybody here? And if at home, he is truly one of the most genuine business owners I've ever met. And I got to tell you, that is such a rare thing today. I know so many people who start businesses because they want to make money. And there's far fewer people that start businesses because they want to do good. Steve, not just this business, not just Done For You, but as a painting contractor and other businesses that he has owned and run, he is just one of the most solid, incredible people with unbelievable amounts of integrity. And Steve, I just want you to know I'm so thankful to be here with you and to be working with you. You're a good man and you're a great leader. Can you just give it up for Steve Earle real quick? So what I wanted to do to kind of start things off, how many of you are fairly familiar with Done For You Real Estate USA, kind of who we are and what we do? How many of you, this is kind of a brand new exploration? Anybody here? I know there's and I know there's a bunch at home. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, from a really high level, who we are as a company, what it is that we do, and kind of how it works. And what it's going to do, it's going to act as a framework for the rest of the evening. So as we talk about our markets, as we talk about really creating a specific game plan, you'll kind of see how that all fits in to the Done For You model. And so what I wanted to do is I just wanted to start and help you know that these are the things that we focus on a really regular basis. Yes, we focus on our results. The reason we focus on our results is because of our people. We know and we have understood for nearly a decade now, like I mentioned earlier, that it is about you. We do not take what we do lightly. The project managers don't take what they do lightly. This is far more than a job for the people that work here because we care about you and the legacy that you can build and the cash flow that you can generate. And I want you to know that. I hope that you feel the heart of the company tonight. I think you already have with Steve. And I hope you continue to feel that. And I hope at home you can feel that because that is what it's about. It's about our people. And we're going to describe a little of what our program is, and then we're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive. Now, Steve mentioned this, and I want to be clear. We used to do a real estate intensive that was how long? I know some of you have attended. How long did we used to do it? You remember? We did 3 days. We've done 2 days. And I'll tell you what, even when we did 3-day intensives, I still felt like there was so much we hadn't covered. I still felt like there was so much more we could give. So these 3 hours are going to serve as a remarkable overview and I think really good introduction or reintroduction to who we are and what we do. So I wanted to start and talk just basics, super duper ultra basics. What do we do at Done For You Real Estate? Well, we take people like you, we help you acquire real estate so that you can do this really cool thing, which is generate cash flow. Generate profits, make money. Now, you and I will probably agree that money is not the end-all, be-all of everything, right? Can we agree on that? But can we also agree that when we do proper things with money and we're good stewards of that which we have, not only can it grow, but it can give us the ability to do more, to serve more, and in some ways even to be more. Can we all agree on that? I just like to have that conversation because I want you to know that tonight it's not money, 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 money. That's not that we're going to talk about what we do and how it generates profits because it's awesome. And because what it can do for you, I got to share the story with you. This is an example of what real estate has the ability to do. I love this story. It was so cool. So I had a friend of mine who was moving. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, Kev, can you come help me move?" And I said, "Sure, man, I'll be there." I'm thinking there's going to be like 5 or 6 guys there. There was me. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Kev, you look really strong. Yes, I know, and I also have a wonderful figure, don't I? You like that? So I show up, and we're just carrying furniture upstairs and around these crazy staircases, and all of a sudden, this older gentleman drives up. He gets out of his car and he starts picking stuff up out of the truck and helping us carry it in. Well, Chris kind of thought that maybe I knew who he was. I kind of thought that maybe Chris knew who he was. He was literally just a guy driving down the street and seeing a moving truck, and he thought, hey, I'm going to help. And so we're talking, and we kind of figured this out, that we don't know who this guy is. He's just literally that guy who's a really good guy, and he's helping to carry furniture up. And so I start to ask him some questions about who he is and what he does. He says he's retired. He says he lives not far away. I was like, oh, cool, you're retired. Awesome. What did you do for work? He told me what he did for his career. And he's like, but you know what really got us retired was real estate. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was like, I actually, dabble in real estate. I've helped a few people here and there do some things with this awesome company. And he's like, oh, really? That's cool. And so we get to talking. You know what he says? Guess what company helped him buy real estate? This one. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. I'm sure we'd seen each other. I'm sure a project manager knew him very, very well. But here we were lifting furniture up the stairs, and he is retired, having the ability to go and serve because he has cash flow, because he bought property, sold property, and was able to turn that into something long-term so that he had the ability just to have a little bit more freedom. See, I'll never forget that story because it was so amazing to me. This guy who I didn't know, somehow, our paths cross, and they'd crossed before. And the result for him was exactly what we want it to be for you. A little more freedom, a little more opportunity, a little bit more possibility. You know what's cool about the kind of real estate we do? You can do this kind of real estate right here where you are as you are. There's a lot of other companies, and there's a lot, I got to go and find a whole bunch of funding, or you have to get all kinds of education. You have to figure all this stuff out, and you go out there and you try, and maybe you fail, and you just keep trying. And by the way, you can make a great living if you're willing to dedicate that time and that effort. Like Steve mentioned, we just tried to simplify that, streamline that just a little, so that you can take advantage of real estate and allow it to do just a little more, but in maybe a more simple way. So our results, and Steve's going to go over these later, and I'm just going to tease them to you because Steve is really going to drill down, but I just want you to know that in general, we've purchased over 3,000 homes for our clients. So in other words, this isn't our first barbecue. We've literally done a lot of dollars in total acquisition cost for our clients. And it's something that I think we're all very, very proud of. There's been over $20 million collected in rent. Can you, everybody say pause. Pause. No, see, when I say you say pause, that means you say pause. So let's try it again. Everybody say pause. Pause. Just let that sink in for a minute. By the way, this isn't money that we've collected. Do you know who's collected this money? You. I think that is absolutely remarkable. And in addition to that, this is kind of cool. There's over $750,000 collected monthly for who? You. Our clients, our people. You. So to really kind of describe the way the program works, we know that you have the ability to come and do real estate. And that's really the key, so that it can generate some income for you. But all the stuff that happens in between is what we're going to cover tonight. Well, not all the stuff, but some of the stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's about you walking through the door, having a desire to do something, allowing us to put together a customized game plan for you, and then we begin, which is the funnest part. And we're going to assume that funnest is a word. Okay? You okay with that? We're not going to go with more fun. We're sticking with funnest, all right? It really is fantastic to say, I'm here. What can I do today to take one step forward? And by the way, that's all we ever ask, is that you sit down and you take inventory, and we see where you're at and what the potential may be. That's all we ask. That's it. And you know what? For some people, it's awesome and it's a great fit. And other people, it's not the right time. We're good either way. Our job is to serve you and help you see what the potential might be. Is that cool or what? I think that's pretty cool. And so I want to show you a little bit of what happens from the time that you walk through the door to where you're part of collecting all of that rent that I just showed you, you as an individual investor. So it really all starts with just an initial conversation. It may be a conversation with me. It may be a conversation with Kurt Cummings, who you met at the front door. That's the other thing, you guys. This is our home office. We are here. And if you're watching online, you're welcome to visit anytime. Our doors are open. At least Steve's is. So, anytime. You can sleep on the chairs in there. He loves it. He always has mints on the desk. So come and just get your mint on. Totally fine. But we are here because we are here to serve you. So regardless of where you're at in the country or whether you're here in this office, you're always going to talk to one of these individuals that's here in the office. It's not a call center somewhere. It's us. And it all starts with just an initial conversation. We just get a chance to talk. And Tyler Bennett's going to come up after me in just a little while, and he's going to detail a little bit more of what that conversation looks like. And he's going to give you a really good idea of what that conversation would look like for you and what that process looks like. Because there's a few steps in the game plan process so that we can figure out where you're starting, where you're going, what the projected returns might be, what the next couple steps are going to be. But it's all a conversation, which I love. How simple. From that conversation, we get to dive into some specifics. What markets? Do you want to invest? Is it time? How much do you have to invest with? Where are the resources? We all know, right? Okay, because the jig is up. We know that even when the market is fake booming, 401k is still not going to retire us. Like, we know this, right? Do we know? Is there anybody who's still questioning whether that's a real thing? I mean, we know that that's not going to work. And I don't have time to dive into the specifics of how the 401k evolved, but trust me, it was never about you. It was always about them. So they continue to benefit. We continue to look at it, put money away, and go, well, now what? So we dive into the specifics. And then from diving into the specifics, if you have the ability to go and do real estate, if you're excited to do real estate, we get to go through a process of doing a loan pre-qualification. Tyler will talk a little bit about this. Just out of curiosity, why do you think we would want to do a loan pre-qualification before we're even showing you property or really going any further? Any ideas? Why would we want to do that? What's that? We don't want to waste your time? Yeah, we don't want to waste your time. Can I just give you a bold truth? Not everybody can do real estate right away. And by the way, that's totally fine. Because if you can't do it today, you might be able to do it in a week, not a week, maybe a year, a month, who knows? It just is, where are you at and what do you have to do? And so we talk about that in the loan pre-qualification, and we get an idea of where we're going to go do real estate, what it's going to look like, so on and so forth. Once we have that pre-qualification done and we have an idea of where we're going to go, this is where we dive in more specifically to your strategy. We're able, in-house, we review the markets with you. What is it like to go and invest in real estate in Indianapolis? Why are we there? And we're going to talk about that tonight. Why are we in Orlando? Why are we in Memphis? Why are we starting to get into Charlotte, North Carolina? Why are we in those places in the whole United States of America? Why there and what's next? And so we start to review that and look at it. Then you have somebody on our team who's going to begin the actual acquisition process with you. You're going to hear from Brandon, who is the guy. This guy knows so much about real estate. I don't think he knows much about anything else because he's a Utah fan, but he knows so much about real estate, and since we're in Cougar country, I can say that, and he's wearing Cougar blue, so I'm just saying. Welcome. And just because we lose and you guys win, it doesn't, you know what, I don't want to talk about that, all right? So somebody like Brandon, who's an absolute expert, along with your project manager, interacting for and in your behalf to help you go to the right market, buy the right type of real estate. From there, the loan team works on the financing and gets it all together. How cool is it that you don't have to go anywhere else? It's not, hey, you maybe want to do real estate, but good luck going and trying to find a loan. You got to go downstairs to Colonial First Mortgage and hope that they'll fund it for you. Instead, it's all here in one place. Notice it's under one roof because we're all right here. We get to work with you from here. We get to work with our teams in the field for and in your behalf. Is that cool or what? So you walk through one door, you don't walk through 10, which I love. I just think it's so simple that way. The loan team works on the financing. Your project manager keeps you up to speed throughout the process. Maybe there's some rehab. Maybe there's, once you close on the home, there's going to be some rent that needs to happen, right? You're going to hear that in some of the videos later. What does the property management process look like? Because, to be honest, you could go buy real estate and it could look awesome on paper. But if you don't have a tenant paying rent, how's that going to work for you? It's kind of important, yeah? And so we've got an unbelievable team and process to make sure that the homes that we're buying are in the right markets with the right conditions so we can go and find the renters that can help to contribute to that cash flow that's coming to our clients every single month. Again, the project manager may be in the market, not the project manager, but your project manager keeps you up to speed. The property manager is in the market, working with us and with you to make sure that everything's happening the way it should. Once you get the keys, by the way, just so you know what the acquisitions team is doing. While all of this is happening, they're finding your home, they're fixing and rehabbing the home. So you've got stuff happening behind the scenes in your behalf that you don't have to coordinate. You don't have to coordinate the rehab. You don't have to figure out what to replace, what not to replace. You don't have to figure out what market and what sub-market and what zip code inside of what market to go and invest in real estate. You don't have to worry about where to go and find the loan. You don't have to worry about finding a property manager. All of that, under one roof, you walk through one door. Is that cool or what? We literally have just tried to simplify and streamline the process of owning residual income through real estate in the most simple way possible. And so you may walk through one door, all of this happens for and in your behalf so that you can generate income. Does that make sense? Is there any questions on that? We're going to dive a little bit deeper, but at a surface level, does that kind of make sense? I guess the simplest way I could say it is we help you create the plan, then we find you the home, we get it fixed up for you, we get it rented out for you, but guess who keeps 100% of the gain, 100% of the profit, 100% of the appreciation? Who do you think keeps that? Do you think we keep that? You do. Because we own the companies that facilitate it. We don't have to share in your profits. Isn't that awesome? Because we make money as you do real estate. Does that make sense? Awesome. So, by the way, once the money comes out, we also have these elements that we can serve you with. Helping you facilitate a 1031 exchange, or doing some financial planning or asset management, or coming up with some insurance products, or making sure that you're properly insured in every way. All here, one door you walk through and you have access to all of this. And guess how much it costs you to walk through that door? Big old goose egg. Is that awesome or what? See, we've tried to simplify and streamline the process so that you can have the best shot at success. So I wanted to have this discussion real quick before we bring up Tyler. So let me ask you this. Why do we invest in real estate? Why real estate? There's tons of stuff that you can invest in. Why real estate? I'm going to share with you a couple of my reasons, but I wanted to find out from you. Why do you think real estate's a good idea to invest in? Any thoughts? Yes. Leverage. I like it. Leverage. There's very few things that give you the ability to leverage the way real estate does, right? Awesome. What else? Why else would we invest in real estate? Why is that an okay idea? Generally, it can appreciate, right? That's right. So now you have money in an asset that you can leverage that has a chance of going up, right? Not too bad. That's cool. Any other ideas? Why real estate? Yeah. Cash flow. So residual income, right? Gives you the ability to park money and actually have, because by the way, you know when you invest in a 401k, you get a check every month, right? Just comes in the mail. Is that how it works? No, what happens? It's reflected on a balance. And somebody's taking a piece of every single bit of that pie every time it's reflected on that balance, right? So what's cool about real estate is that money actually comes to you, which can be kind of cool. So I wanted to share that kind of a concept. This is one of the things I love about real estate, is that real estate gives you multiple streams of income. Now I want you to think about this for a second. How many types of investment allow you to make money in 2 or 3 or 4 ways? When you put money in the bank, how many ways can you make money? 1, interest, right? When you put money in a 401k, how many ways can you make money? 1, it has to go up, right? That's just kind of the idea. But real estate's different. In fact, I love to do this because I think it really demonstrates the point. It's one of my favorite examples. How many of you know my dollar example? So I want you to think about money just briefly, okay? The way money works is this dollar is a representation of what? What's that? Yeah, it's a note, right? It represents for us 100 pennies of purchasing power, correct? Generally speaking, the way most investments work and the way when we put money in the bank, the way money grows is money has to go in and then we hope that it multiplies, right? That's kind of the idea. And then if we take it out, we're spending it. Is that right? Yeah, that's just kind of how it works. This represents 100 pennies. See, with real estate, this one single dollar doesn't represent 100 pennies. It could represent 300 or 400 pennies because $1 can work in multiple ways, and I'll kind of demonstrate that here in a second. To illustrate the concept further, before I tell you how it ties to real estate, I'm going to give you the example of how this $1, we're going to do a magic trick. I'm going to show you how $1 can purchase $4 worth of goods. You guys ready? Okay, so you're going to be a volunteer for me. Congratulations, Scott. You're in the big leagues now, buddy. Vaughn, you're going to be a volunteer for me. I promise you're not going to have to do a lot. And Ryan, you are, okay? So let's say that I own this dollar, right? I own 100 pennies of purchasing power. And it just so happens that Scott, well, he owns something that I want. He owns a McDonald's, and I want a double cheeseburger because Tubby's got to eat, all right? And so I may say, you know what? I'm going to go and exchange this $1 for a cheeseburger. So I give him that. He gives me a cheeseburger. So I spent my 100 pennies, right? But now who owns a dollar? Now, by the way, it's the same dollar with the same serial number, right? So now Scott says, you know what? I got to get this uniform clean because I got some fry grease on it. So happens that Vaughn owns a dry cleaner. So he gives that same dollar, same serial number to Vaughn. You get a dry clean uniform, I got a cheeseburger, right? Now Vaughn says, you know, I really need to get a car wash on the way home. It just so happens that Ryan's the owner of the car wash, and so Vaughn is able to go get a car wash. Now what's really cool is Ryan is a reader and I'm an author, and so he decides he wants to buy my book. Now here's what just happened. Now I know it's a simplified example because it's $1 and 100 pennies, but it bought 100, 200, 300, 400 pennies worth of goods. How is that possible? It's how money works. But can you generally own every piece of that? No, but you know what real estate lets you do? It lets you generate multiple streams of income because here's how it's going to work. Let's say that Scott is a home, and this is my down payment. And I'm going to put my down payment into Scott. Now what's going to happen, that money's going to sit there. You don't have to give me that dollar back, but am I receiving money if I did real estate the right way? I'm receiving money, and I may receive that money, and I may have enough so that I can go and buy another piece of real estate. Now, when I buy that piece of real estate, what's happening? Right? Now, and let's say that compounds the idea, and now I'm able to go buy another piece of real estate, and now I'm receiving 3 bits of income. And by the way, it's not just because I bought the property. I'm receiving appreciation. That's one stream of income. I'm receiving cash flow. That's another stream of income. I'm receiving tax benefits and tax savings. That's another stream of income, isn't it? And there's even other things you can do in conjunction with real estate if you want to receive multiple streams of income. So now all of a sudden, my $1 gave me an opportunity to do more than just what that 100 pennies should be able to do so that I can leverage and have the ability to make more. Now, does that make real estate pretty cool? It also makes real estate pretty unique. Another reason, and this is some of those streams of income, right? Cash flow, appreciation, tax savings. Here's another thing. How many of you know that inflation is kind of a thing? You may know that inflation is kind of a thing that we have to consider, right? And what has the American government been doing at unbelievable rates over the last, 16 years? Printing money. But do we even print it anymore? No, you just go in and digitally adjust, right? It's like, here's another zero. There you go. I wish somebody would do that to my account. That'd be awesome. But that's how it works for the banks, and they're printing money. Now, what happens when money gets printed and more money is infused into an economy? What happens to the prices of things? They go up. Now, here's the crazy thing. Is real estate a hedge against inflation? Because think about this. If I go and buy a piece of real estate and everything becomes more expensive, labor becomes more expensive, lumber becomes more expensive, nails become more expensive, what is happening to the purchase price of that home? And that's a lot of times why we see appreciation. But if I bought it here and it's doing this along with the whole economy, what also is increasing is rent. And so now I have a tangible asset that produces multiple streams of income that is now a hedge against inflation. There's not many things that give you that ability. Is that cool? This is why we love real estate. And finally, it's a tangible asset, like I kind of mentioned. This is why we love real estate. We love real estate because it gives us opportunities that almost nothing else does. But here's the problem with real estate. It's hard. It can be fraught with difficulty. You have to feel like you're an expert if you want to succeed in it. It can cost you a ton of money. So what if there was a way to customize a plan for you, where you are as you are, to move forward, just taking a step so that you could begin to transact real estate in the right way for you in the right markets where somebody else is doing the hard stuff, finding the home, fixing the home, placing the tenant. See, my friends, that is what we've created at Done For You Real Estate. And so with that, now it's my distinct pleasure to be able to welcome up a young man who I have a lot of respect for, a gentleman by the name of Tyler Bennett. Now, just so you know, Tyler is one of the best business people I've ever met. He is unbelievably smart, even though he doesn't look it. I'm kidding. He is unbelievably smart, incredibly fit, which makes me mad every time I see him, and really just such a smart guy. And he has been, I want to make sure you know, he has been instrumental in opening every single market, in working with every single one of our team members so that we have the right type of product and the right type of process so that our people can receive the right kind of profits. So please put your hands together for this man right here, Tyler Bennett.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. So Brandon's going to follow me and talk about the markets, and he just got some good news out there that he shared with me, so I'm going to share it with you instead of let him. So one of our new markets is Charlotte, and he just got an email that one of the townhouses, the first one that's complete, but we haven't quite closed on it yet. We're doing punch list items for the certificate of occupancy, leased out at pro forma for a 2-year lease. So far so good in Charlotte. So yeah, it's good news. Okay, so what I am going to talk about is the game plan process, and this is probably what's most enjoyable for me in this, in the entire process or journey that we have with our clients. It's this first part, and I really love diving in and exploring where somebody's at right now. So it's literally just peeling back all the layers of the onion and say, okay, where are we at financially? What are our goals? What's our time frame? What's our risk tolerance levels? What do we want to get to? What does that represent for us? And how can real estate potentially play a role in that? And there's every game plan or every person that we work with is unique in where they're at, where they want to get to, and their journey of how they're going to get there. And so it's different every single time. So what I want to do is spend about 15 or 20 minutes talking about what that process is like, going through the game plan. And I'd encourage anyone who hasn't had a game plan, get one. If you have one, we would love to sit down with you and say, where are we at now? Oftentimes a year or two goes by, we've bought houses and things change, and so let's sit down and look at where are we at today, and do we need to tweak or do we need to make any changes on the direction that we're headed. So I'm going to start off. Many of you have seen this before, and I like it, and it's kind of an underlying foundation for what we do, but it's create, manage, protect in order to grow. And there's really 4 parts to this. Create is we've got to create the scenarios. We've got to create the plan. We've got to be creative and see what we have to work with and go through that process. And then we've got to manage. And then we've got to protect what we have. And we've got to constantly juggle what's going on with the market. And as we manage, as we protect, we might get in one market, get out one market, or do different things. And so keep this in mind as I go through, because really it's created around this concept that we want to create new income, we want to manage it properly, we want to protect it, all for the reason of growing it. So how do we create a game plan? The first thing we do is identify. And I have a couple scenarios of some game plans that I personally have done in the last couple of months, 2, 3, 4 months maybe, because some of them started buying some houses. And I just want to give you a couple different examples of where they were and what we came up with. So one was a recently divorcee, single mom, 4 kids, been divorced about 1.5 years and got some money in the divorce. She has child support coming in and she has some alimony coming in. But the alimony ends in 2022, at the end of 2022. So we had about $150,000 to work with, and she had that sitting in an account, and she was getting all kinds of different advice, right, of what to do with that. But her main priority was, I have a certain amount of alimony coming in every single month that's going to disappear. And that's significant to her. And so it was, can we create a plan that over the course of the next 4 to 5 years, how close can we get to replacing that? Can we exceed it, or where can we get to? And so we developed a plan for her, and she's just going under contract this Friday on her first house. And with our conservative projections, we're not going to quite replace it, but we're going to get pretty close. Oftentimes, real estate's friendly to us, and we can exceed our expectations, or we might get more appreciation than we're anticipating, or there's a chance that we could get to where we want to get to. But if not, we're going to get pretty close. And she feels really good. She can sleep better at night knowing that, okay, there's a plan, and here's what it looks like over the period of 4 to 5 years. Another one is some close friends of mine. And mid-50s, 56, 57 years old, worked a good job their entire lives and had some equity in a small company. The small company was acquired, and they got a good chunk of cash. And so the plan was, okay, well, what do we do with all of this? And I said, well, let's put it all in real estate. I'm just kidding. No, we created a plan, and it was, okay, let's put some over here. Maybe let's annuitize some. Let's have some bonds. Let's have our super secure, safe, predictable, and let's chunk it all out. And we allocated a certain amount towards real estate. And his goal is to retire in the next 5 years. And he wants to replace his income with new income. And with the combination of everything that we put together, we had a plan, and they'll buy 8 or 9 houses in the first 6, 7 months of working with us. And if you look at those houses and where they'll be in 5 years and on from there, we'll put a good chunk into replacing his income. So that completely changes his perspective of how he lives his life today, how he approaches his job, knowing that he's going to have that income coming in. What was the last scenario? First-time home buyer. So working with a young couple and buying their first home. Husband has good, stable job. Wife's a school teacher. They've always rented. Husband's job requires him to travel quite a bit and potentially relocate. So they've never owned before, but they want to own. However, they're looking at it from an investment mindset. They have a 5-year-old and like a 2 or 3-year-old. And they're looking at it as, okay, if we buy this house, we want it to work for us today, but we want to convert it into a rental property because more than likely we're going to move. And what will that look like? And so it's fun shopping for houses with them with that in mind. Because most people that are buying their first homes are looking at it. There's a lot of emotions involved. Sometimes they may spend more than they should, or they'll max out their debt-to-income ratios. So I'm able to guide them through that to say, okay, what's going to be work for you today, but be really set you up to be in a good situation tomorrow. And that'll become their first investment property. And they don't even have enough money to go buy an investment property today, but they have enough money for a down payment on a primary residence. So it's a great mindset to get into real estate. So those are just a couple examples that I personally have experienced recently with the whole identify process. And this is really one I just like to sit down and get a blank sheet of paper and just start, okay, tell me everything. What do you have? And oftentimes we uncover money that people don't realize they can use to allocate towards real estate. Oftentimes we'll analyze a portfolio and they don't realize the amount of fees that they're paying. Or that it's not performing as well as they thought, or they might look at a year-to-date portfolio in the market and it's at 8%, but if we look at over the last 5 years and it did this, maybe it's really the effective rate is 3%, or we just go through that whole process, say where's your money at, what's it doing for you, and let's look to see if it could be doing better for you. Make sense? And with that, we set all the goals. I talked about that. Oftentimes we uncover in this process that maybe you don't have enough money to work with today. That doesn't mean we just kick you to the side and completely disqualify you. Sometimes we'll brainstorm, do you have cash partners or credit partners? Sometimes people have cash, but they don't have credit. They can't qualify for a conventional mortgage, and so we need to help align that, or vice versa. They have good credit, but they don't have enough cash, and so we can explore who's in your sphere of influence that you could potentially bring in and you could get started sooner rather than later. Okay? The next thing that we do is we want you to become familiar with the product. So now we've got all the information, and now we want to know, okay, where do we go from here? Before we say let's go buy this many houses, we want you to become familiar with the product. Brandon and Kevin are going to come up after me and get you really familiar with the product. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the actual product, but we want you to be comfortable with the markets we're in, why we're in them, the types of homes, the types of return on investments that you can anticipate, all of that. And we really, really focus on the numbers. And from here, we want to paint the picture of, now that we kind of know what we have to work with and what our starting point is, what does that mean? And we want to plug that in. So I'm going to switch screens, maybe, and show you what that looks like. I'm guessing you can't read that right now. How about that? Okay, I'm going to hide over here. Okay, so what I want to show is just a really simple diagram of how this process works. And I'm going to use really easy numbers. I won't take the time to go through all this because you'll go through it in the pro formas after this, but we have a whole bunch of assumptions with what appreciation is, what repairs and maintenance are, how much the purchase price is, how much we're paying out of pocket, all those different things. But for the ease of numbers and to illustrate the principle, I'm going to say we're buying a house for $100,000. So we'll pretend it's our Indianapolis market because that's a price point that still exists there. And we're putting in $30,000 per house. $20,000 for a 20% down payment, plus we have some closing costs on a mortgage, we have some other fees, we have maybe a little bit of repairs and maintenance. So on average, we're going to say $30,000. So this just shows you a diagram of if somebody had $60,000 today, what we could do if we were buying houses for $100,000. And of course, if we buy in our other markets, the down payments are a little bit higher because the purchase prices are higher. And so it scales evenly. If you have $100,000 and you have 50 per house, then you can obviously buy houses that are $180,000 in Memphis, for example. What happens, you buy two houses, okay? And can you guys see the blue marker see me scroll? So we're saying on average, we're doing $275 a month. So year one, we cash flow $6,600. We put in $60,000, so we averaged about an 11% cash on cash ROI. Everyone follow that? Makes sense? So what I'm assuming is we put in money today and we don't ever add in new money. However, that managed principle that I talked about, we're real big advocates of, unless you need that cash flow to put food on the table or to stay afloat, let's save it and reinvest it. You know, the principle of compounding interest. So let's assume that we save the cash flow, and this is our real estate business, and so we want to use the money for real estate. Okay, so year one, we've got $6,600 in our bank account. Not enough to go buy another house. Year two, year three, rents go up a little bit because rents increase every single year. So we get additional cash flow every single year. Now we have $30,000 of cash. Okay, so now I come over here to year five. And I know this seems slow and boring, but it's the way that we do real estate. It's conservative, it's predictable, and it works. And over a period of time, it's very, very, very powerful. So in year five, we buy house number 3 with the cash flow money. Okay, so we didn't come up with any new money, it's cash flow money. Now we've got 3 houses. These ones we've been increasing rent on. This one's at $275 a month because purchase price went up a little bit because of appreciation. Okay, the assumptions that we have in here. And then I'll just kind of fast forward to year 8. We have enough cash flow to now where we've bought 4 houses. Okay, then I come over here to year 5, and now we've bought our 5th house. Again, still at the $60,000 investment. So what's happening right here after 10 years? We've got $2,000 a month of cash flow that we're accumulating, which is that $24,000 a year. Obviously, that's a significant cash-on-cash ROI versus the initial $60,000. So we're getting a good return on our initial investment. And here's the annual, okay, 10 years in, here's where I'm at. And my net worth, that 60,000 has turned into 263,000 of net worth because of the equity we have in our 5 houses. We've been paying down 1 house, 2 houses for 10 years at this point. So we've been building equity with that, with the principal pay down, and the houses appreciate. Okay? I'm going to just fast forward. If you look here, year 12, 13, 14, we're basically buying a house a year with the cash flow. And I model this out to, well, I'll show you for 15 years. So there's our initial investment. Now we're at $4,000 a month. Our portfolio value, our debt, that 60,000 has turned into over $500,000 of net worth that we have. Then 16, 17, we don't pay cash anymore, and we can't buy a house every year because now we have 9 mortgages on our credit. So I'm going to assume the lending world is the same in 15 years as it is today, and you can only get 10 mortgages on your credit. So we're going to assume you have a primary residence, and now we have 9 investment properties. So now we have to pay cash. So we have to accumulate enough cash flow in order to buy this house outright. Okay? And I'm just going to go to 20 years right here and fast forward. So at the end of 20 years, we have 11 houses, 2 of which we own free and clear, 9 of which have mortgages. The first 2 have been paid down for 20 years, so there's not a very big balance on them. And that $60,000 has turned into $75,000 of annual income. And the net worth has gone up to about $1.2 million. Now, the first thing I kind of think as I go through this is everything looks really great on a spreadsheet, right? It's easy to make spreadsheets look really, really good, and real life can be a little bit different. And what does it look like? I'll be back up later tonight to just share some case studies of some actual clients that we've had for 5+ years to show you their experience. And this is assuming the market just stays flat. And we see 3% appreciation in real estate, which we know on average that's a safe estimate or assumption, but we know 3% doesn't mean you get 3% every year. We're going to see 8%, we're going to see 0, we might see some negative, like real estate's going to do this. So oftentimes we take advantage of that and we can accelerate this plan by timing the market the right way. Just like we did, and you'll see some examples later today in Phoenix and Las Vegas, where we bought when they were on super sell and then we were able to go up. Okay, so that's kind of an example. The last thing I just want to show you is the power of the starting point. So kind of where we start and the power of compounding, basically. Can you guys see that? Probably not. I just want to focus on these top 2 lines right here. So this shows if you had 1 house. You start with 1 house. This is using a different example of average down payment. So this is saying it's $42,000. And I'm just going to skip over to 20-year summary. So the same concept, you've got $62,000 of annual rent income if you followed the same process but starting with 1. And you start with 2, and it nearly doubles. And so it shows the power of an extra $42,000 represents an extra $60,000 a year in income and almost $1 million in net worth over a 20-year period of time. Okay? So this is the process that we look at when we identify everything, and then it's, okay, what can we do and how can we put it in? And we want to show you if you started with 1, if you started with 3, if you were self-directing IRA and you did it with cash, if you, all these different scenarios, we want to be able to show you what's that going to look like for you. Okay? If I just pull this out, then it works. Maybe. Good job. So at that point, we identify what's the starting point. And then we help, okay, now what do we need to do to actually get started? And what's the initial game plan? And then is any new money or additional money going to come in? Or do we just plan on recycling the cash flow? Or we create that whole plan of what we're going to do with it. Then next, I'll just kind of breeze over these next few steps. But now it's we need to get shopping. And I'm just gonna, can I go back? Hold on. Sorry. Okay, so there's a couple different steps to go shopping. One, now that we've identified what we have to work with, what we want to do, now we need to go get pre-qualified. So that's where we work with the lending department to find out, okay, can I buy one house at a time? What do my debt to income ratios look like? What do my credit score look like? How does all of that measure up and stack up? And we want to make sure that we don't have you out shopping for a product that you can't necessarily perform on. One, that helps us in our relationships with our suppliers and the different ways that we find inventory to make sure that we can perform if we go under contract. And secondly, we want to make sure we're setting the right expectations. We might get the pre-qualification information back and we may have to tweak your starting point. We may be able to be more aggressive than we initially thought we could, or we may need to go slower. Or we may need to call an audible and look for plan B. So that's an important part of it. And in that process, we're going to look at, your insurance, for example, or everything that determines that debt to income ratio and what's going in versus coming out. We might look at your property and casualty insurance on your houses, on your vehicles. Again, we just want to do a pretty comprehensive, what is everything you have going on, and is there better, cheaper product potentially out there that we could help improve your overall cash flow every single month. And then from there, it's just we go shopping and we go execute on it. And we have an incredible system for that, which you'll learn more about of how that works. And then that manage and protect piece comes in. Now that we've acquired your properties, now we're just in maintenance mode, cruise control. It's important that we're managing and that we're protecting what we've acquired. And that's where we like to have at least every 6 months, or we want to have some sort of checkup so we're getting back with you saying, okay, what's happened and how's everything performing and what do we need, where do we need to go from here? Or we may reach out to you and say, hey, guess what? This just happened in this market that you're in. It makes sense to sell right now. And if we sell here, this is what it would look like if we went and acquired over here. And we can get you a higher ROI over here than we can in this market. So let's analyze that and let's share that information with you. So we're constantly pushing information out so that you can always be in control of your portfolio. We really view it as you're building your own real estate business. We're a tool to help you do that. And so we're just going to keep giving you information so that as you make decisions, you have as much information and knowledge as possible in order to do it. So that's a quick summary of the game plan process and kind of how that works and how we go about creating it. And as we get all that information, a lot of times behind the scenes, we're crunching, okay, what different scenarios, and let's come back with, here's scenario 1, 2, and 3, based on what we have to work with, of what we could do on our side of things to help get you where you want to get. So hopefully that's some valuable information. I'm going to bring Kevin back up, I think, and then we're going to get into more of the markets and the actual product. And then I'm going to circle back and kind of look back so you can kind of see, okay, here were some game plans that we did 5, 6, 7 years ago, and here's where we thought we were going to end up, and here's where we ended up, and you can kind of see how it all fits together.
Before you go, Ty, does anybody have any questions for Tyler? We've got a couple minutes. Any questions on what the game plan process looks like, or anything that he shared, any of the numbers? Feel free to ask. And Carson, can we field questions from the viewers at home as well? Yes, in the back.
We're obviously late, but you probably addressed this. Is there a way to get around the 20% down for each home?
Nope.
And let me just repeat the question for the viewers at home real quick. So the question was, is there any way to get around the 20% down for every home in every investment purchase you go get?
Yeah, so right now, current lending, there's no mortgage insurance offered for investment properties. So Wells Fargo, they might be willing to do a 10% down payment for an investment property, but because there's no mortgage insurance, they don't feel comfortable doing it. There are some programs out there that are starting to offer like a 15% down. You pay for it in rate a little bit because they make the adjustment because it's a little bit riskier, but it's starting to loosen up a little bit. It was obviously no money down, no income, no anything, you could get an investment property. And then they went really strict, and they're starting to go back there. Yep.
It's a good question.
Good question.
Any other questions, Steve?
I was just going to add, though, that one of the principles of how we operate is 20% down, because what that does for you is with 20% down, you avoid mortgage insurance, number one. Number two, you have skin in the game and you're vested such that you cash flow the way that you need to cash flow, and it's also a hedge against a change in the market. And so it's one of those things that even when 0% loans were available, we didn't do them.
Yeah.
We didn't have not one of our clients do a 0 down loan. It was always 20% down.
Yeah. Yeah, and we typically, almost 99.9% of the time, are doing fixed rate mortgages, 30-year, because we don't want the product, the financing to determine when you need to sell. We want the market to determine when we need to sell. We had a lot of clients that bought in 2007, 8, 9 in Utah, which wasn't a great time to buy, but they put 20% down. They did fixed rate mortgages. And guess what? They made 7 to 10% cash on cash ROI during one of the worst real estate markets that we'll ever see, because rents didn't crash. So they continued to make a return on that investment. They rode the market out. They didn't have option arms or 5-year arms, or they didn't have anything that was expiring that then put them in a situation where they couldn't service the debt. And now we're selling those houses for them, and they're making the profit. Yeah.
So I bought my first house with 0% down, not with Strongbrook, with somebody else. I learned a horrible lesson. When you buy 0% down, your mortgage payment is just as high as the rent, you make nothing.
Yeah.
Another thing is, after you own 4 houses, they think you're a pro and they love you, so they charge you 25%.
Correct. That's starting to go away as well. Yeah, they're starting to relax on that as well. Yep. So.
Yeah, really good questions. That
Good comments.
financing piece, it can be very difficult to navigate if you don't know what you're doing, which is why we have in-house experts and we work with people that have been doing investment loans for our clients for 10 years.
Yeah.
Which gives you a resource of unbelievable knowledge and experience, which is hard to find among most loan officers, which can be really helpful.
I like to say, and I see some heads nodding, but in my opinion, you can buy the right house for the right price in the right location at the right time, and if you do the wrong financing, it can end up being a bad investment. And so that's a really important piece to the whole picture.
Yeah. Any other
Anything
questions
else?
real quick before we let Tyler go? Do you have one? Yeah.
What do you do with reserves while we're building up for another house?
Yeah, good question.
Good question. So we have some in-house financial advisors, and we encourage people. One, I encourage them to set it aside. Don't let the rent payments go into your personal checking account, because it's going to get lost in life. Set up separate accounts and treat it like it's its own business. Worst case scenario, you do that and it accrues. You're not making much interest, well, any if it's in the bank, but it's still set aside and it's accumulating so you can then use it for the next down payment. There's other avenues, other products we put it in. Typically, it's not high amounts, so we don't have access to some of the AMA accounts or in and out of markets, but we typically will just try to find a really conservative Vanguard type fund or something like that, where we can put it with a target of 3 to 6% interest, complete liquidity, so that you can then access it and go use it. Yeah, and we like to use our family, because financial advisors, if you're building funds with them, they make fee income, and then all of a sudden you want to go take it out to do real estate, they're going to say, wait a second, keep it here. And so we like to make sure everyone's on the same page, and that our clients are the ones actually driving, and everybody knows the goal and works together.
Yeah, when you walk through the DFY door and you're part of the DFY family, everybody speaks done-for-you language, right? Which is nice, and everybody knows what this process is, and we have such a awesome track record over the last decade. Everybody's kind of on the same page, which I think can be really, really helpful. So it's a good question, and I mean, that's part of the reason why those resources are there, because we don't want you to go and spend the cash flow that's coming in, because it defeats the purpose of everything Tyler just kind of illustrated and demonstrated.
We see with our clients, our clients aren't perfect at reinvesting all cash flow into future real estate. And oftentimes they look back and say, man, I wish I would have just set that aside, because it really didn't make a difference where it went. and now I'm not able to buy more real estate.
Yeah, and a lot of times, Tyler, I told you he's a great business person. He actually owns a Mara Day Spa down the road. A lot of times our clients just like to go get their hair done at there.
There
And
you
that's,
go.
I mean, it's...
That's a requirement.
Yeah, well, yeah, he had a, yeah.
Do your clients, or do you advise your clients to create any type of legal entity or structure like an LLC to house this ownership?
Yeah, that's part of the game plan process when we get to that protect element. And typically we'll introduce that concept, and then once we have the plan structured and we get going, most common is just an LLC, real estate holding company. And it can create that additional layer of protection. It's something that's typically done after you finance the house, because if you're doing conventional financing, you have to do it in an individual name, and then you can get the property into an LLC.
And we do have people that we work with that can facilitate that
Yeah.
process too, that kind of know us and know
we look at
how this works.
umbrella policies as you continue to buy more and more houses, and you pay an extra $20 a month, and you have an extra $1 million of liability coverage, and so we look at all of that as portfolios grow, and it makes sense. Question.
Awesome question. Okay, everybody give it up for Tyler Bennett. Thank you, my
Thank
friend.
you.
So I want to make sure you guys know you're welcome to come over here. Does anybody want a water? Kurt can throw you or give you a water. You're welcome to use the restroom or come get some peanuts. Oh, look at that. Nice catch. This is, see, now the pressure's on. You got to catch it. We're 2 for 2 over here. But you can use the restroom if you need to. Come over and get some snacks. Feel free. So what we're going to dive into right now, we just wanted to be casual. You're here, and those of you at home should be going and getting snacks at any time. What we're going to go into now, this is one of my favorite parts. And, do I hear music? No, okay, you're just casual, yeah. So, we can have a dance party. So what we're going to go ahead and keep going, because we still have a lot that we need to cover. And so, but feel free and, take a break and get something if you need to. What we're going to go into now is one of my favorite things that we talk about. So real estate, we know it can work. By the way, was that beneficial, what Tyler shared with you? Was that good to see? That game plan has been central to what we've done since the very inception of the company, because if you don't have the right plan, it's pretty hard to figure out where you're going to go. You could want to drive from here to New York, but if you have no idea what roads to take and which roads to take in which order, you may never get there. And so the game plan really facilitates that process. And the game plan leads right into this conversation, which is, what are the markets that we want to go and invest in? Now, let's see if we can agree on a couple things. Can you agree that any market, you could find the right house in any sort of market, and it may work well for you? Could that be true? Go find the right property in the right kind of market? Sure. But the question is then this: what market? Those of you here live in Utah. You on camera, or you guys watching at home, you may live wherever. How do you figure out, do you only invest in your backyard? Is there better markets than the one that you live in that you could be investing in? But then how would that process work? I mean, imagine you'd have to do all the research. You'd have to figure out which market you want to go to. Then you'd have to figure out what sub-market inside of the greater market to go to. Then figure out what kind of real estate you want to do. And then figure out a way to go and obtain the financing or get everything done that you need to do in that market. If you don't live in that market, it could be daunting. And it could be a lot. And so one of the things that Tyler's been really great at, that Brandon's been really great at, is making sure that we're doing that hard work for you. That we're doing the research so that we can take you to the best markets that we can maximize the potential with this really great conservative, this type of real estate is not real sexy, right? It is conservative, it is predictable, it works, and that makes it awesome, but it's not real fast and fancy. So the question then becomes, which markets do we go to utilize this strategy so that you can have maximum benefit as the people that can benefit from owning this type of real estate? And so what we're going to go into now is the 4 markets that we're primarily purchasing in now. We're going to talk a little bit about why are we in those markets. We're going to show you some video of what those markets look like. And Brandon's going to come up and we're going to talk a little bit about where in those markets we're purchasing and what that process looks like. So I just got to say, kind of on a personal note, I have so much respect for Tyler Bennett. I have so much respect for Steve Earle. I have so much respect for Brandon. Brandon is a consummate professional. He knows his stuff, and I am always amazed. Sometimes I like to just go into his office and just listen to his conversations. I have no idea how he knows what he knows, especially as a Utah fan, but he is really awesome. Please help me in welcoming Brandon Grange.
Thank you very much.
Hi, buddy. How are you? Man, it's been a while since we've done this together. This is, we used to do, when we would do the 3-day intensives, Brandon would always come up, and this part that we're going to do in about 45-ish minutes, we would take 3, sometimes 4 hours on, and we would really do a deep dive. But you know what? You know what's great about that? Having a project manager and having Done For You means you can do that deep dive. It just doesn't have to be right here. But that's why we're going to give you a high level. We're going to talk about some of these markets. And the first market that we're going to talk about that we're doing a lot of real estate in is Indianapolis, Indiana. So Brandon, what I want to do is let's start here and kind of talk people through first of all, why did we go to Indianapolis, and where in Indianapolis are we purchasing?
Okay, great. So I love talking about the markets we go into. That's a big part of what the acquisitions team does at Done For You Real Estate is we spend a lot of time analyzing different markets, how the numbers make sense in terms of where purchase prices are at, what rent levels are like, what property management fees are like. You know, if all of those factors and components still can spit out a good and sustainable cash flow to our clients. And so we spend a lot of time doing that. One of the markets that we're in currently right now is Indianapolis. And part of the reason why we decided to go to Indianapolis, some of the former markets that we were in kind of did look a little bit more sexy. And those are the ones where we were doing Phoenix and Las Vegas. We kind of had an opportunity that was really, we all feel like it was a once in a lifetime opportunity with the crash that occurred in those markets. Now, some of the hottest and highest performing markets during the run-up from 2002, 2003, all the way through 2007 were the areas where most people were moving to. And those were areas with a lot of sunshine, you know, a lot of vacation type of things going on there. So the number 3 appreciating markets during that run-up were also the 3 markets that had the highest into the state immigration that was happening, the highest population growth in those states. And that was Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Orlando, Florida, or lots of places in Florida, but specifically Orlando. So we were able to go in and because of the relationships we had in those markets, we were able to go into markets like Phoenix and Vegas, and because of the relationships that we had with wholesalers and suppliers and auction people there, we were able to buy and rehab and sell to our clients houses that just literally our average house probably at the peak of the market was about $225,000 that we were now able to buy and rehab and sell as finished product to our clients in the $70,000 to $80,000 range, which that never happens. Those kind of markets literally are once in a lifetime type of markets. And so we did a lot of work down there. As the properties appreciated and we started to look for more normalized kind of markets that we were looking at, one of the main ones that we decided to look at were kind of in the Midwest. You know, rents are typically a lot higher in the Midwest opposed to the purchase price of the house. Just a lot of people like to rent single-family homes in the Midwest. And so we started looking there. The Midwest can be a little difficult in terms of the economies that are there. You know, we've all heard of the Rust Belt. You know, places like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan. You know, a lot of those kind of markets throughout the Midwest are a little bit more difficult in terms of the way that their economies transitioned from those highly manufacturing type of economies throughout the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. As manufacturing started to move off seas, a lot of those Midwestern economies had a harder time adapting. And so the markets the economies are still a little, you know, have taken a little bit longer to recover in those markets. Indianapolis we really liked because we felt like they did a really good job. They were never as dependent on manufacturing and automotive that some of the other Midwestern markets are. Obviously, they're very high in agriculture, which is always kind of still sticking around, but they also made a transition into technology and also biomedicals that are in Indianapolis. So they had a kind of a more sophisticated economy, so to speak, which we thought would help be sustainable to our clients going into those areas. Was there a question? Did you have a question in the back?
Have you guys done any research in South Dakota?
We have done some research in South Dakota.
What's your assessment of that?
One of those really, really hot markets that got really, really hot and then really, really not. So it's actually a good point to bring up. We actually heard about South Dakota and North Dakota quite a bit with a lot of the oil run up that was happening for a long time, and we got a lot of that because that was right around the time that we were starting to transition from some of our hot equity growth markets like Phoenix and Las Vegas, and we were starting to go into more of these conservative markets. A lot of people were asking us about North Dakota and South Dakota. I know someone that bought a house that literally doubled in 6 months and all of those kind of things. And so for us, there's not always, but a lot of times there are those hot spots around the country where something very specific to that market is going on, which is making those crazy fluctuations in price. For us, we're glad we looked at it and we just, were able to tell that, hey, look, all of this boom is 100% based on one thing, and that is oil. And even further to that point, not just the oil, but fracking that was going on there. That's kind of controversial. You've probably heard those terms. Not a lot of people even know what it means, but it's basically that specific environmentally, technically, it could be, depending on who you talk to, a rougher way to kind of jump into things to get that oil out. And so as the oil market cooled off, so did the housing market. And so that boom lasted a couple of years and was done. And so for us to jump in and get all of the infrastructure and the teams that we're going to be talking about in place in those markets, we just felt like it wasn't a standard enough market for us to jump in that put our clients in a good position. And if we had done that, they would not be in it. It'd be rough for them right now. So
it actually
great
brings
question,
up,
though.
It's a great question. It actually brings up a really good point. This is one of the reasons why I love having these guys, because we get suggestions on should we go to that market, or have you guys ever thought about Texas, or whatever the case may be. Brandon and Bryson are always doing that research and making sure that it's the right choice, not for us, but is it going to benefit our clients? And so you take a look at like Phoenix and Las Vegas, we almost sort of reluctantly went into those markets. We'd been doing a lot of real estate in Utah. And then we because there's a team, because there was research that could be done, because we saw that the homes had come down in price, so your price per square foot was so much lower than even just the rebuild cost, there were some economic factors, including how the areas were growing, that we could ultimately look at. So it's kind of a macro view and say, well, it's not just that real estate might get hot, it's that right now would be a good time to buy, and we could ride that swing up. And then again, here's another powerful point. When you have a company like Done For You, because we're always doing real estate and we're always moving, like we just have started to do a little bit of real estate in North Carolina, because we're always going to the place that is going to be best for our clients, when you buy real estate with us, like Tyler was talking about, home 1, home 2, he's talking about a 20-year snapshot. We're not talking about 20 years in the same market. We're talking about 20 years with the right type of single-family residential investment real estate that is conservative and that works over time in the markets that are most conducive at the time that we're helping you go and purchase. Does that make sense? And I know just me personally, I feel such a level of comfort in knowing that that's what they do all the time, which again is why Indianapolis kind of came on the scene.
Right, so just to go over real quick where we're buying, it's important, and we found that a lot of these cash flow heavier markets that we go into, it's kind of a similar principle that people like to go where the schools are as good as possible out there. And so renters, it's not as big of a factor for, but it is a factor. It's more the exit strategy of the homes. So for us, we really like to be kind of, they call them the townships. So really looking at the map, this is the 465 belt loop that goes all the way around the city. The townships really kind of, the city limits of Indy, are roughly about kind of where the 465 goes. The township areas kind of start on these edges of where the 465 is. So looking at, it's easy for us to kind of tell where we're at as you kind of figure we're not doing anything on the inside of the belt loop. One, it's there, like I said, the schools aren't as good in there at the price points that we want to have our companies buy in. And so they're either really depressed areas or there's really, really nice areas that they just don't make sense. Like Broad Ripple they're showing here is, if people know what Sugar House is like up in Salt Lake, it's very similar. So we're always kind of in these outer areas on the townships. We don't do as much up here in the very, very north. Fishers and Carmel, these are kind of like the nicest neighborhoods in Indianapolis. So it's kind of out of the price range that for us to have our clients kind of go in and the rents don't scale up. So we're kind of on these outside areas. The airport's right down here. The great thing about Indy is you can literally be almost anywhere in the city and get downtown in about 15 minutes. Anywhere on these outskirts. We were up here in Carmel looking at a cool golf course that I really wanted to see on our last trip. And at 4:30 on a Wednesday, we got down here to the airport in about 20 minutes. So traffic is great in Indianapolis. The economy is really, doing well there and strong with the industries that we're kind of talking about. And so for us, it's been a great area. So we, in terms of where we're buying, we're in the township areas, kind of are all in this area here.
Now, Brandon, average purchase price in Indianapolis is around what? What's kind of the range?
So for the markets that we're doing, Indianapolis is kind of our lowest total out of pocket market for our clients. So the average purchase price in those markets on the low end is, and these are to the client prices. So fully rehabbed and done, ready to go. $80,000 about on the low end is where we generally are, and then typically we're about 120 to 130 on the high end in Indianapolis. Now we are starting to do some newer product in Indianapolis. The suppliers that we work with out there are building a few homes that are available to be sold to our clients. And it's kind of some legacy lots that had been not purchased yet from the recession that are still there that we can kind of come in and get cheap, build the home all the way from the ground up and sell them to our clients. Those are a little bit higher. Those are generally kind of more in the 140 to 160 range. But our standard product, what we're doing most of our deals in is that 80 to about 120, 130.
So, yeah, I was going to ask.
The age of the homes? Every once in a while, we'll do some homes that get down into the 60s and 70s, into the 60s, about as low as we ever get. Obviously, those have been gutted several times, and we're generally still doing quite a bit of that as well. The average age in our house in Indianapolis is generally in the kind of mid-90s range. It's kind of a broad range. So we literally do a fair amount that are down in the 80s, and they kind of go up into the late 90s. We don't see a lot of 2000 houses in Indianapolis, and a big reason for that is the newer homes, the homes that we did a ton of in like 2003 built, 2004, 2005 in Phoenix and Vegas. Those areas got hit extremely hard during the recession in Indianapolis. There weren't as many homes built during the run-up. So those homes that were built, a lot of those people were foreclosed on. And so there's a lot of rent, generally a higher ratio of renters to owners in the newer areas that we would normally do than we find in some of the older, more established areas. And so we do newer homes in the mid-2000s in Indianapolis, but we have to be very, very specific on the neighborhoods that we'll do them because we don't want to put people in neighborhoods where 80% of the homes are renters. I mean, just the pride of ownership and everything's just not really happening there. Go ahead.
Did you say that you guys do the rehabbing before you sell them to the clients, or no?
It depends on the market. So the vast majority of our markets, our in-house model is that model where we're actually either one of our entities that we manage or one of our suppliers' entities will actually go in and purchase the home, rehab the home, and then we're selling it to the client. In a market like Florida, where there's just not enough of a spread from where we could find those distressed assets, there's too much competition there to be able to buy those type of homes, put in the rehab that needs to go and pay off the encumbrances and the title work and everything that needs to go into it, and still sell it at or slightly below market value to our clients. But the deals are still great. And so in those senses, we actually have clients that will work with our agents in the field, select a home just on the MLS or through the areas that they're finding them, and then we manage the rehab portion of the house after they buy it. So those houses are in a lot better condition because we don't want to have our clients having $20,000, $30,000 rehab bills. It's usually things like, I think our average rehab on a Florida home is like about $4,000 or $5,000. Whereas in Indianapolis, the average rehab is probably closer to 20. And in Memphis, it's probably closer to about 30.
And we'll actually show a video in just a second of Indianapolis. So another one of the original founders of the company, Stephen Miller, you'll see him. And you can kind of get a feel. That's a home that I think is built in the 80s, and you'll kind of get a feel for the neighborhood and what those homes look like. And so it's a good question. What years are the homes that we're buying? The other question, Brandon, just out of curiosity, is so in general, somebody finances a home, they purchase a home in Indianapolis. On average, what type of cash flow can they expect with a home like that once they've paid, mortgage and taxes and insurance and everything?
And it's, like I said, that's the total out of pocket for the vast majority of our clients who are using financing, that 20% down with the loan covering the rest of it. The average total out of pocket on those Indianapolis homes is typically about $30,000, I would say. $28,000 to $30,000 is the total out of pocket they're putting out. In terms of the net monthly cash flow, so after all of the property manager expense and all of the expenses that associate to a house, generally it's about $250,000 to $350,000 where you are on the range. On that higher, the $120,000, $130,000 house, as opposed to the 70, about the $80,000 house is generally in that 250 range. So about on average, I'd say about $300.
And I just want to, and just real quick, and then we'll take your questions. Sorry about that. If you think about that for a moment, so your total out of pocket is somewhere in the ballpark of $30,000. You're cash flowing $250 to $300 a month. Just do the math on that, and it'll help kind of indicate if you were to add up those cash flows and you were to put that against what you put down on the home initially, you're seeing the kinds of returns that are far going to outweigh generally what you're getting in a 401k or something like that, and you're liquid and having the ability to move this property over time into more and more real estate, which I just think it's important to kind of draw that dichotomy, because I know $250 or $300 doesn't sound like a lot, but based on what Tyler showed you and how our approach is with this real estate, you're really in a good position to set yourself up, not just right now, but really build something like Steve's going to talk about later, really build a kind of legacy so that over time, you're really truly building an actual real retirement with real cash flows. So, what was your question over here?
Yeah, kind of piggyback on that last scenario. What is the gross rents then?
The gross rents, again, it's typically about, 1% of the purchase price. So meaning that, on average, you could say an $80,000 house is generally going to be about $800 to $850.
120,000, 1,200.
About in that range, yep. They're a little bit higher as you go lower, the kind of cash on cash return. As they go up a little bit higher, they get a little teeny bit smaller, but generally our average, I should be putting this in my mouth, sorry. But generally speaking, our average cash on cash return number, which is basically the return you're getting on the actual dollars going in, which is 20% plus, closing costs and things like that, in Indianapolis is typically 10% to about 13% is the return on the actual cash that you're putting down to purchase the property.
And I'm looking at it from purchase price, 1%, like say $120,000 home, 1%, which would be a great return, that'd be $1,200 a month. So and you guys are saying $350 a month. I'm wondering, okay, there's like $850 difference. So
Yeah, the mortgage payment's the biggest chunk of that.
Yeah.
Mortgage, taxes, and insurance are the biggest chunk of that difference from the gross rent on a finance deal to the net monthly cash flow.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So that lowers that down.
Mhm.
So on a $120,000 home, you're putting 20% down.
Mhm.
So it's a $100,000 mortgage, right? So then you should have, and if you have 1% of the 120,000, it should be about 1,200, right? And you have a $900, all right? 900. I don't know what the mortgage would be.
Yeah, we'd have to pull. I mean,
Yeah, I'd
are
have
we
to
showing
put-
some performance?
I don't think that we are. So, but to kind of answer your question, I think where you're going with it, Brandon's saying that the overall rent that is collected is on average about 1% of the purchase price. The actual return that's coming to you, that's going to be the difference, right, between, that's gross rent. So your actual net is going to be the difference between your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and then what they're ultimately paying. So on average, if you have a $100,000 mortgage, depending on the interest rate, your mortgage might be, I don't know, I'd have to pull up a calculator, but maybe you're $800 to $900. That's your total mortgage, taxes, interest, so on and so forth. And they are renting it for $1,200, and there's the difference that you're making. And what Brandon said is if you take that difference and you add that up on an annual basis and you put that against the actual down payment going into the home, that's that 10 to 13% range. That's where that number's coming from.
When you're financing.
Does that make sense? Yeah, when you're financing. Obviously, if you bought it cash, it would be a little bit different. So, is that making sense? You got a question?
Yes, online question. Lisa, is Done For You the owner of the property management company in Indy?
No. So all of the
Question.
so again, the question was, does Done For You Real Estate? They're talking specifically about Indianapolis, but I can talk about for all of our markets. Done For You Real Estate does not own any of the companies that we work with that are out in the field. So property management companies, rehab companies, brokerage companies that we work with, title companies, all of those are third-party companies from us that we work with and we have a great working relationship with, but we do not own any of the companies, including property management, which was the question.
By the way, one of the benefits I think there with property management is if you take a look at the property managers that we work with, there's a really good working relationship. They're very open. They understand and expect what we expect for you for our clients. And what that also means is if they're doing a number of properties for our clients through Done For You, we make up a good chunk of their rent roll, right? Is that fair to say? Now, think about what this means. Have you ever had a property manager have you ever done a piece of real estate and your property manager just never seems to really answer your phone calls, doesn't really seem to care about you because you're just one person that has one home on the rent roll? Anybody ever had that experience? Well, imagine you've got a property management company that has a good chunk of their rent roll with Done For You clients. We get to be your advocate and be the 800-pound gorilla, which they want to continue to gain our business because we're bringing you to them because we're facilitating this process for you. So what it actually does is it creates a really awesome sort of bonus relationship that you get, because otherwise you would just be working on an individual basis with a property manager, right?
Yep, 100%.
Do you guys want to see a quick video of what Indy looks like and kind of what the homes look like in a little bit? You'll see some of the rehab and one of our team members there. Okay, let's go ahead and play it.
I wanted to speak a little bit about what people in Indiana are accustomed to as far as living standards. I think most people that have grown up around here are used to living in single-family homes. It's a good-sized metro area, but it still has a small-town feel to it, and most people prefer to live in the single families as opposed to apartments or condos. And the cost is really about the same. So if you have a home that's in the $1,000 price range, and you have an apartment that's the same price range, most people here would prefer to rent the single family home, and that's one reason why it's a great place to own the investment properties. We have typically 3 and 4 bedroom homes. This is a good example here of a ranch style 3 bedroom 2 bath, and that seems to work very well as far as an investment property goes here in Indianapolis.
I'm really excited because I'm going around and getting a really good feel of the different kinds of neighborhoods that we're going to be buying in. Some older, some newer, some kind of mid-level. And so what's nice about this area is I'm looking around, and what I see is they're all making improvements. I can hear people trimming their trees off to the side. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but you're able to get a lower price deal that with a very small amount of typically mostly cosmetic work. So come on and meet me inside. This one right here that I'm in is actually kind of in the mid-step of the process. We've picked it up, we're in the rehab process, and it's really exciting to see all the detail and all the attention they put to putting this house together so it's packaged appropriately. This is one of our little bit older homes. This home was built in the 80s. We have homes that are built in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And so really I'm just trying to give you a really good smattering of what you can be expecting, what you can look for as we do more and more real estate out here.
I wanted to talk a little bit about an older home. This home was built right around 1980 versus a newer home that might have been built in the 2000s, and just kind of really there's not a whole lot of difference. The neighborhoods are the key thing. We are down on the south side of town. It's an excellent school system. Some people might not be able to afford to rent, and pay $1,200 for a house that was built in 2010, but they still have the same benefits of the area and the school system for their kids, so they might have to rent something a little bit more affordable, and that's why we do these type of houses. We don't have a whole lot of natural disasters here in Indianapolis. The walls are never going to fall down on the house, so the important things are to make sure the mechanicals, the roof, the windows, all of those items are replaced, and that way there's not going to be any major maintenance cost that you have to worry about. Those unforeseen costs sometimes can kill you. Your return is very, we're able to calculate that, but if you have a lot of unexpected maintenance, then that doesn't work out that way.
When you look at it, they talk about pre-qualifying. What do you guys do? Is it credit checks, or what is it you're looking at to get the right kind of tenant in there?
Right. I think at the end of the day we have the same goal in terms of you want to get a tenant that pays their rent on time every month. We want a good tenant that pays their rent on time every month. It makes everyone's life easier. Want a tenant that understands they have some responsibility with general landscaping, some basic maintenance, things like that. So it is important for us to get a very highly qualified tenant. I can tell you we evict less than 1% of our tenants a year. we rarely have to evict someone. It all comes down to really putting the effort and time to screen the tenant correctly. So every applicant or every prospect we have that's interested in our properties applies right on our website. It's very seamless integration. It's not an overly burdensome application to fill out. We have to ask the right questions. So then we take that and it automatically processes a full credit report, criminal background check for us. It performs a tenant performance report, which tells us if they've ever had eviction filed on them. Which is important to know because a credit report won't show necessarily if there's been an eviction filed. It will show if there's a judgment against them from an apartment complex. So we of course verify wage. We talk to current landlords to make sure that things are run on time and have not had any trouble that way. And then we kind of summarize that all on this form. It's called, I call it the cliff notes of an application. And then that is sent off to you as the owner for approval. We do give all of our owners a chance to review the applications. And because we want you to feel comfortable that you're putting the right person in your property. So you're going to see credit score, just some basic information that you need to make a good decision on a tenant. And then we go through the process of getting a deposit signed, a lease signed, and everything. So, but we do. It's someone that all our applications are scrutinized very heavily, and we turn down a lot of applications before it even gets to your level because we just feel like it's not a good fit and that we have trouble down the road. So that's how that works.
Watching that, any additional questions on Indianapolis? What Brandon was saying that's nice, and you'll see this on, I think also on the Orlando video, which I think will come up next, talking a little bit about the property management process, because that is so integral. So what you saw, that was a done-for-you client working with one of the property managers, asking some questions. Was that helpful, hearing that piece as well? Yeah.
How many homes do you have in Indianapolis?
So the question is, how many homes do we have in Indianapolis?
I think we've got currently probably about 275 to 300 that we've done there in the last couple of years.
Yes, right here.
What are the property management rates in Indianapolis?
So the question is, what are the property management rates in Indianapolis? I'm just repeating so everybody can hear.
So the main so this is TNH, that was called TNH Realty, that group that we worked with. We also have another group called ENS Realty that we work with as well. In Indianapolis, they're typically, and a lot of times we're able to get deals for our clients based on the number of people that we kind of pump into their system. So typically out there in Indianapolis, the leasing and marketing fee is unfortunately kind of on the higher end of what we experience in some of our other markets. It's typically, once it's all said and done, it's close to about, with TNH Realty, it's a full month's rent counts for the leasing and marketing fee. And their ongoing fee is 8%. Normally they're 10, that they gave us a deal down to 8. ENS Realty, the other group that we work with, they're closer to about 60% of the first month's rent that cover the leasing and marketing fee. And then the ongoing fee is 10%. So it kind of depends on definitely depends on the market we're in, the property manager we're working with, for what they end up being, but that's what they are in Indianapolis.
Yeah, question in the back.
When they do the backgrounds, do they also do criminal background checks or just if there's been evictions?
Yep.
Yeah, so she asked so the question was, when they do the background checks, is it criminal background checks and what was the other one you mentioned? And yeah, eviction and credit and all that. So yes, the answer is yeah, they are. Yes. They are doing that. Good question. Yes.
My experience is they are better finders than I am. I'm too soft-hearted. They're hard-nosed. They don't want to have to pick people out.
Ray is way too nice.
That's right, Ray. Yeah, for those of you at home, Ray, who owns some property, said they're way better than he is because he's too soft-hearted. They're all business all day, and so they don't want to have to go through the eviction process. So they do a really good job in working with you, our clients, to make sure that it's the right type of tenant and that it's going to work in the long term.
Just to add on that real quick, they take pride in that too. When he was talking about they have less than 1% on an annual basis of their evictions. I mean, that's a selling point for them. So the last thing they want as a property manager want to do is put a tenant in that they're going to have to evict and cost more to the owners. So it's a good point.
By the way, how awesome is this? Where else do you come and get this kind of information about other markets? I just love what these guys do. I mean, I'm here too, but I get so pumped up because I just don't know who
Kevin
else
makes me
in
feel
the
good about
world.
myself.
Well, and I need to because I know your wife doesn't. So I'm kidding. Look, we've known each other a long time. We can play.
You can do that.
So let's go ahead and let's kind of transition out of Indianapolis, which is one type of market, and let's talk a little bit about the Orlando market. Now, the Orlando market, we've actually been in Orlando. We started to move into Orlando as Las Vegas and Phoenix were kind of starting to come to an end. Orlando is still a great market for a number of reasons, but let's go ahead and take a look at the map. And Brandon, talk us through a little bit why Orlando originally, why are we still there, and where are some of the areas that we're purchasing in Orlando?
Okay, so they are in the video that we're going to show. They do talk a lot about what's kind of going on now in Florida in terms of a lot of the companies that are coming and things like that. So we won't cover a lot of that here. But in terms of why we're in Orlando, first off, as I kind of talked to you about before, those three hottest markets during the run-up were again Phoenix, Las Vegas, and the central part, the I-4 corridor basically of Florida. I-4 corridor basically being, this is the I-4. Orlando's kind of right in the middle of the state. If you guys were watching Hurricane Irma, you probably got a little familiar with what Florida's like, but I-4 corridor goes all the way down here to the southwest, which is where Tampa is, and it runs all the way through Orlando and continues up into the east, which is where Daytona Beach is. So that area through there was one of the highest appreciating markets during that run up as well. The recovery for Florida started later than it did in Phoenix and Vegas. You know, the run up kind of happened at the same time, but due to the way that they process foreclosures, this is called a judicial review state. All that really matters as far as that definition is it takes 2 to 3 times as long for a foreclosure to process to go from the first notice of delinquency to when the foreclosure actually happens and the person is, the house goes back to the bank. That process takes 2 to 3 times as long in Florida as it does in our western markets. So the result of that is they had a lot more inventory of the foreclosed properties that needed to work its way through the system in order for them to be sold and the recovery to start happening. So we entered the Orlando market about 1.5 to 2 years after we were already in Phoenix and Las Vegas, just because that recovery wasn't quite starting yet. So that's the main reason why we were there, is we knew the same types of principles that made Phoenix and Vegas so great for us were going to occur in Orlando. The main question was when. And we think we timed it pretty well that was going on there. In terms of where we wanted to go in Orlando, for us, we really wanted to, we did look a little bit kind of in the northeastern portion of the state, but we really started to focus in here on the southwest. The main reason for that is this is where the parks are. So Disney World, Legoland, Universal, all of those parks are all kind of in this area here because that's where there's just a lot of available land that was there, one. There's a lot of new construction that's going around those parks. A lot of the people that work at the parks at certain levels of employment make fantastic renters for our clients' homes. And so for us, because of the big base of renters, because of the employees at the park, was a big reason for us to go there. And also all of the land that was being developed out there that would help with pushing up the appreciation on our houses was another factor as well. So mostly the southeast is where we are. Claremont, I'm not even sure if it's on the map, but it's kind of in this area here, is about as far north as we go. And then we go down to Hunters Creek. We actually come all the way down here. I think the furthest market that we're out down here is about Auburndale, which is, probably, from Celebration. Disneyland or Disney World is kind of in this area. Auburndale's probably about another 20 minutes down I-4. So this whole area is where we're buying mostly. Davenport, Kissimmee, Point Siena, those are all kind of our main markets, and all those little cities in there. Winter Garden, we're doing quite a bit as well. So Southwest is where we are in the Orlando market.
So then with Orlando, talk a little bit about how it's different than Indianapolis. So in terms of price, sort of mode of acquisition, and just kind of the overall process that our clients go through when they're purchasing an Orlando home versus kind of what we covered with Indianapolis.
So in terms of the average, we talked a little bit about the way, this is definitely that different market that we were talking about in terms of how we acquire the homes. We touched on it a little bit. We call it the difference between our in-house and our direct model. In-house model, again, being where we are kind of going in and purchasing the homes and doing all the rehab and paying off all those encumbrances, and then selling a finished product to our clients that's rent ready. In Florida, because of the spread that was in between those houses, where we could go in and buy them for the work that had to be put into it and where the market was, there just wasn't enough room for us to do that and sell it at a good price to our clients. Because all of these houses, we have to assume, need to appraise. 80-90% of the clients that we work with are using financing on their homes. And so we can't just go in and say, the market value is throwing out numbers, $125,000 on this house. Well, our costs aren't going to let us sell it for $125,000. We can only make money at $135,000, so we're going to sell it at $135,000. Can't do that. I wish we could do that, but we can't do that. Because all of the houses, we have to assume that there's going to be an appraisal on it. And so it's another check for you as a buyer is to make sure that the house is in congruence with the local market. So here, we actually, as we mentioned before, we actually have, and the person that's going to be on the screen, Ryan, is going to talk a little bit about why we go where we go and how we do it. But all the agents we work with out there know specifically the types of markets that we want to go in that make sense for our clients. And so we actually have our clients making offers on the MLS based on the criteria that our team of agents out there knows. They then will put an offer on the house while when the offer is accepted, we actually will run all the numbers, make sure everything looks good. We'll get our rehab team out to actually do a rehab evaluation on the house. And assuming everything checks out and the numbers work the way we need to, then we'll actually go ahead and let them move on with the house through their due diligence period and close. Once the closing happens, then we jump in and actually perform the rehab on the house. And then while the rehab is occurring, we're actually able to start marketing the house then. So even though the rehab is occurring after people buy the house, our lease-up time in Florida on average is about 2 weeks to find a tenant. So there's not a lot of downtime when the house is getting rented. So it's worked out really well. We just like the opportunity so much in Orlando that even though our normal in-house model wouldn't really work, we still wanted to have our clients have that opportunity, and that's how we came up with this direct model.
The other thing that I think is really powerful, not just for Orlando, but really for all the markets, when you start to shop for homes and we kind of identify the market that's going to be best for you as you're going through that free game plan process and we kind of take a look at it, you're going to begin to see homes and you're going to see some pro formas. And Brandon and his team mock up these pro formas brilliantly, and you're going to see every single number you could possibly need. Brandon, I want you to talk a little bit about, you guys are so good at dialing in the numbers with our teams in the field. On average, how close are you to your guess of what the home is going to rent for versus what it actually does rent for? What percentage of the time are you really good?
I think we're really good all the time. Actually, the property managers do a fantastic job, and the reason why we're able to hit those numbers in terms of the rent levels to get is because we're not the ones coming up with the rent. The property managers are the ones telling us what the rents are going to be. So regardless of the market that we go into, whatever rent number that we're going to put into our pro formas, which is obviously the most important number that our clients are concerned about, that number is coming from the property managers. They need to hit those numbers. And generally speaking, they a lot of times kind of come in a little bit low on what that estimate is, or we want to put the most conservative number that we can possibly put on our pro formas. So on average, a lot of the markets, they're actually starting to market the house about $50 a month higher than what we're even showing on the pro formas. And I'd say probably 30 to 40% of the time they're hitting that higher number, kind of depending on the market. So did I answer the question?
Yeah, okay. The vast majority of the time, you are.
Oh yeah, how often we're actually hitting those rent projected numbers. I think our average is, of all the markets combined, I think our average in Memphis is above 100% on what the pro forma rent that we hit. But between all of the markets, I think we're at 98%.
Yeah, so think about that. So 98% of the time, you're actually collecting the rent that's on the pro forma. And the reason why I point that out is a pro forma, it's not just some numbers to make a property look like it's worth purchasing. These are really dialed in numbers so that you're looking at the real situation of what that property has the ability to do right now and on into the long term. Because on the pro formas, you'll actually see it's not just what's going to look like today. We're actually projecting out, based on history and based on what we know in these markets and the hundreds and hundreds of homes we've done, how that's going to look for you as a client when you're purchasing in that market. Let's go ahead and roll the video real quick for Orlando, and then we'll come back and ask any questions.
Florida and the Orlando market specifically offer an investor a great alternative to other markets in the U.S. And here's why. Florida in general has a very business-friendly tax environment. Overall business climate is very friendly. There is no state income tax, so there's a lot of people that we see migration moving from places like New York, example, state of New York, over 50,000 people a year are leaving the state of New York for the state of Florida. Businesses are relocating here. We have a very friendly environment, low business taxes, low startup costs. The state is actually running at a surplus, and they have over $1 billion surplus. Orlando market has a lot of benefits. It right now is one of the fastest growing cities in America. It's one of the fastest growing job markets in America. In fact, Forbes magazine in October named Orlando the #1 job growth market in the United States. So you're hearing Orlando right there with Austin, Texas in population and job growth. And what's bringing people to Orlando? I think that's what a lot of people seem to be wondering. And other than having a great business-friendly environment, having fantastic weather year-round, people are coming to Orlando because it generally has a lower cost of living than a lot of major cities. And as far as business is concerned, Florida's come back very quickly. It's a state that has focused on its assets and resources. It really backed the tourism market, and what we learned is that tourism is somewhat discretionary income, but people are willing to go spend money on a family-friendly tourist environment as soon as they have money in their pocket. So they might avoid that trip to Europe, but Florida and Orlando specifically offer a cheap alternative or a better, more cost-effective alternative. So the state of Florida backed that, and now the state of Florida is going to have nearing 100 million visitors a year. Orlando actually being the most visited city in the world now, approaching nearly 60 million visitors at the end of 2014. So the state recognized its assets, it started backing tourism, and tourism led to job growth. We're seeing tourism go upscale. Four Seasons just opened its largest resort in the world this summer in Orlando. Orlando has a Waldorf Astoria, has a lot of upscale brands that have come here saying, this is the new tourism market. Orlando has other industries besides tourism, such as healthcare. Healthcare is huge in the Orlando area. There's actually a project called Lake Nona, the medical city. It's the largest healthcare development in the United States taking place right now. New hospitals, new cancer research, all of this is happening right here in Orlando. The tech industry is, a lot of people think Silicon Valley and New York City is big tech markets. Orlando, the #2 industry is technology. So I think the real estate opportunity is there, and I think it's going to be here for a while. Regarding property management, a lot of our clients will ask us, how do we handle the property management on a granular level? Because that's what it boils down to. That's what makes your returns. You can buy a great house in a great area, but it needs to be managed right. We do criminal background, we do sex offender searches, we do credit checks. So we really try to find the right tenants. So what we generally are doing are finding homes that need light cosmetic work. We stay away from homes that need major structural issues or have structural issues and things like that. What we're doing is a light cosmetic renovation. We're getting the homes inspected, checking heating and air, roofs, hot water heaters, all your system, all your big ticket items. We strongly recommend a home inspector on each and every home. We also do termite inspections as well. So we try to uncover what are all the secrets of this home. Let's now go and renovate the home. Let's fix those items. And then when we're renovating the home, we'll actually begin the property management process during that renovation. So in a lot of cases, like the home that we're at right now, the renovation isn't complete, but there's a sign in the front yard. So we're already advertising it. And as we were walking into this home, we had somebody stop us on the street and ask about the home. And it really puts the timeline for leasing the home, it shortens that. Generally speaking, the homes that we target will rent in 30 days or less. And you know, there is a little bit of variance, maybe 14 days on either side of that. Sometimes they rent very quickly. A lot of it has to do with the time of year and exactly when the home hits the market. We use PropertyWare. PropertyWare is a software for property management companies. It helps assist with marketing, billing, etc. On the marketing aspect, it'll syndicate the properties to Zillow and Craigslist and all the places that you would possibly find a rental property online. So we do that syndication. We also will market the properties on the multiple listing service and give you the maximum exposure for your home. So that's important to us. As far as taking applications, as mentioned, we will have the tenants will go through all the screening and the background checks, all those things that are really important to make sure that your tenant is qualified. We'll check their income, make sure that they can afford the home. What's great about using the PropertyWare system for you is you get to see all these things happening in PropertyWare. When we upload a lease, you'll get a notification. When a tenant makes a payment, you'll get notifications. We can throttle those a little bit, so sometimes you're getting too many notifications. So we might have just big ticket items if you, such as a major repair request, or if we're having to collect on a tenant, something like that, we'll notify you. But what's great about it is you can actually communicate to the property management team directly through PropertyWare. The tenants can communicate through PropertyWare. We strongly encourage that tenants get set up on automatic drafting. So there's no running around, collecting rent, doing that. That's all old school. We'll generally do a 12-month lease with the option for the tenant to renew at that point. And it's pretty cut and dry from there. We collect a 1-month security deposit that's held in escrow and is billed for the tenant if there's any damages. A lot of people ask about pets, and I think everybody probably has an opinion. Our opinion is a lot of tenants are pet owners. That's to your discretion. If you don't want pets, that sort of thing, we're going to tailor the property management as much as we can to your individual liking, but we'll make strong recommendations of what's worked for us thousands and thousands of times in the past. So I think that pretty much summarizes how we handle property management.
And then we're going to blast through Memphis, and then we're going to move on. We won't have much time to talk about Charlotte, but just want to kind of touch on all of these, and I think you're getting a really good feel of what the process is. But purchase price, what are we looking at in terms of purchase price in Orlando?
Yeah, we're typically don't have as big of a range in some of the other markets that we do. On the low end, we're typically about 125,000, 130,000, and on the higher end for the normal products that we're doing is typically about 145 to 150. We based on some of the relationships that we have that our brokerage firm has with some of the developers that are in Florida, at times we've been able to kind of come in and buy some brand new homes that they've kind of earmarked for our group. Those that haven't been lived in before. Those houses are typically a little bit higher. They're typically kind of in the 160 to 170 range. But we don't do a lot of those. I'd say those are about 5 to 10% maybe of the total inventory that we're doing in Orlando, or the brand new construction.
Total out of pocket?
Total out of pocket on a finance deal is typically going to be in the 36 to 45,000 range. And again, that's factoring in rehab as well. So that's that one other element that makes Florida a little bit different, is because the rehab's occurring on the majority of the houses after we buy the house. We have to factor that into what their total out of pocket is going to be. We do factor that in, and we factor that into our pro formas as well, and how that affects the actual cash-on-cash return that you're going to be getting on this.
So it still functions essentially the same. You're going to know your total out of pocket and your potential return. It's just the actual timeline of what happens is a little bit different in Florida. Any questions on Orlando before we move on?
How good are you at predicting the rehab costs?
Good, and we actually, and I'll go real quick. There's in Florida specifically, what we do is while the house is in its due diligence period. So when the client kind of selects the house, the agents have kind of eyeballed the house, and they've gotten really good at kind of estimating just with a quick drive-by and actually looking in the house what those rehab costs are going to be about. And then once we're actually under contract, they've decided to move forward on the house. While they're in their due diligence period, we actually will have our rehab crews go out and make an official rehab estimate on what it's going to be. And if for some reason that's off from what they were expecting, our clients will still have the opportunity to cancel the deal and kind of move on to the next one. But because we have those two phases for estimating our rehab, we generally can dial it in pretty close. And frankly, the agents have gotten awesome at it. I mean, they're usually within a couple $100 on what the real, contractor's rehab estimate ends up being. So we feel like we do a pretty good job with it.
So again, it's just the benefit of having the team there in the market who's done a lot of this real estate for us and with our clients. So let's talk a little bit about Memphis, Tennessee. So where in Memphis and why in Memphis?
Cool. So for Memphis, again for us, we've really liked Memphis and Stephen Green, who's our supplier. By the way, all these people that you're seeing in these videos are the suppliers that we work with. So like Ryan, for example, he works with the brokerage company, also the property management company in Orlando. Stephen Green does a lot of that with the same kind of thing, finding the houses, sourcing the houses, managing the rehab in Memphis. Why we're in Memphis is it kind of checked all the boxes for us. The rents have been historically very strong in Memphis. Appreciation hasn't been totally out of this world in Memphis. It typically has been about 3%. While we've been in Memphis over the last couple of years, we actually timed it pretty well, and it's actually been closer to 5 to 7% of the annual appreciation in a lot of the markets that we're buying in Memphis. Very high in terms of transportation. FedEx is there. A lot of road systems that are going through Memphis. It's one of the busiest airports in the nation is also in Memphis. In terms of where we're buying, it's a little bit harder to see, but Memphis is kind of a big one-side town, right? We have the Mississippi River going here. This is a different state on this side. So we're basically, downtown Memphis is right on the river, and then it kind of moves out from there. So it doesn't kind of go all the way out like it does in Indianapolis. It's kind of on one side, it's by the river, and then it goes out. We're typically on the outside of the 240 ring and inside of the 269 ring of where we're buying. The markets that we're typically going in are Cordova, Bartlett, Lakeland, Arlington, and then southeast Memphis here is where we're doing most of our deals. And the main reason for that is the schools are better when you get out kind of outside of Memphis Unified School District, which is helping with that exit strategy when people are trying to sell to primary home buyers are usually looking for those better schools. Also, the amount of inventory that we can get, and just what those typical cap rates are at, where the rent level is compared to the purchase price, are very, very strong. And so for us, it's been a really, really great market, and that's typically where we're buying it.
So let's watch the video real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll talk total out-of-pocket and purchase price.
Obviously, one of the main things that drives investors to Memphis is that the price points comparatively to the rest of the country are low, and the rents are high, which is of course going to mean positive and really good cash flow. But the reason why Memphis has that situation going on is that its main driver is distribution for the city. Memphis has what we say are the 4 R's: rail, road, runway, and river. Being on the Mississippi River, we have one of the top 3 inland ports in the country. The rail system is in the top 3 behind Chicago and St. Louis. Obviously, FedEx is headquartered in Memphis. And then the geographic location of Memphis, when you look on a map, allows you to reach a very large portion of the continental United States within I believe it's a 10-hour drive. And so you have a very substantial trucking industry here as well. And of course that brings warehouses in the city, and you get a large number of blue-collar jobs, and that blue-collar typically will bring more renters. The product that we provide to the investors is one that we feel like is going to give the investor success in the long run. We pay attention to things like only providing houses that have 3 bedrooms minimum, 2 bathrooms minimum, covered parking, in areas where families own the houses alongside with investors owning the houses. So we're not just investing in investor-only neighborhoods, which is going to give you maybe multiple exit strategies down the road. When you do look to sell, you have the option to sell maybe to an investor or to an owner-occupant because you're in an area where families would want to live. That's also going to increase the rentability of the house. So we look at things that we would want in a home, both as homeowners or as investors. We also pay attention to things like the roofs. Even if a roof isn't leaking, if it looks like it has less than 5 years of life left on it, we replace the roof, and we always use 30-year architectural shingled roofs. If a hot water heater has less than 5 years of life left on it, we replace the hot water heater, because we think that hot water heaters on average have a life expectancy of about 10 years, and we don't want you to have to deal with that 3 years from now. We like brick homes. One other thing that we do that a lot of people don't do is we like to put a more durable flooring in the high traffic areas, in the living areas of the homes on the main floor. So in most living rooms and hallways, we're going to put a 12 millimeter laminate flooring in as opposed to carpet, so with the idea being that when a tenant moves out of the property, that you may just have to clean the bedroom carpets, or if you need to replace carpet, you can replace one bedroom, clean the other two, and it saves you money down the road, as opposed to replacing all the carpet throughout the entire house. We like to put tile in the kitchen. So really it's the attention to detail, having a certified HVAC tech go in and not just fix a problem, but a lot of times go ahead and replace large portions of the HVAC. So our goal is to provide a house that has the systems of the property are in good working condition, and they're going to last for years while you're owning the property, and that's going to decrease your deferred maintenance down the road. So going back to Memphis and the economic drivers, we obviously have some large Fortune 500 companies that are based out of Memphis, International Paper, AutoZone, and one of the largest ones being FedEx. Because of FedEx's presence in Memphis, the Memphis airport is in the top 2 busiest airports in the country in terms of flight volume. I don't recall if we're number 1 or number 2, but we go back and forth with Hong Kong as either the number 1 or number 2 busiest airport in the entire world. And so because of that, because of the ability of having FedEx here, a lot of other companies want to be located in Memphis so that they can get their product to the consumers. Walt Disney, Pottery Barn, ASICS, just to name a few. Target's looking at building a new distribution warehouse. Nike has a large presence in Memphis. And one of the reasons why they have a presence here is because of FedEx and the ability to get product to the consumers overnight a vast majority of the time.
So why invest in Memphis? Well, aside from Beale Street being voted America's best iconic street and Graceland as the best iconic American attraction, Memphis has been a center for national civil rights, is culturally diverse, and is a national transportation hub, attributing to its sustained growth and economic vitality. All of this and more makes Memphis a preferred location for proper real estate investing.
So that gives you a little bit of a feel of why Memphis. And I hope you're starting to see why Indianapolis, why Orlando, why Memphis. There's always a method to the madness. And so talk briefly about like purchase price in Memphis and total out of pocket.
So Memphis is probably our highest price point market that we're in. Also has one of the higher ranges that we're in. We kind of pick up right where Indianapolis kind of left off in terms of the top of Indianapolis's purchase price. The low end for us is typically $130,000, $135,000. Every once in a while, we can find some homes in very specific neighborhoods. I think we may have done, literally in the 3 years we've been in Memphis, we may have done 3 or 4 houses that were kind of around the $100,000 mark. But we have to be very, very selective in terms of where we're buying in those type of neighborhoods. Typically, if people are under $130,000, are going to Indianapolis, if that's the money they have to spend. On the high end, we go up to about $225,000 in Memphis. We found that Memphis is one of those markets where the rent kind of scales up along with the purchase price better than a lot of other markets do. So 130 to about 225 is how we go. The average purchase price, I would say, is about 165,000 in Memphis. So, sorry.
So, awesome. Okay, so we only have just a couple minutes left before we're going to move on to the next thing, and so let's kind of leave Memphis there, and then we're not going to watch any video, but if you'll touch on just briefly, 1 or 2 minutes, what helped with the decision to go to Charlotte, what kinds of awesome things are happening in Charlotte, and what's kind of the time frame for Charlotte in terms of what Done For You clients can experience?
Yep. So for Charlotte, for us, is an exciting new market for us. Charlotte is basically our new market, meaning that all we're doing in Charlotte is going to be new construction homes. In terms of what's going on in the city, things that we really liked about it, strong on economic growth, low on unemployment. Also, the median home value is about 20% lower than the national median, which we really liked a lot. We think we're finding the developer group that we work with in Charlotte. We spent a lot of time vetting and finding which groups we would be able to go to. Also, there's just a lot of land that's still available to be developed in Charlotte. So for us, it kind of made sense that we'd be able to do a lot of product for our clients. Our developers are pros out there at finding those legacy lots, those lots that have been foreclosed on a number of times from banks, kind of in the run-up, that we can get in at a low enough level to get some really good value to our clients. It's because we're doing new construction, we don't have a steady stream of houses that are continually coming through like we do in our other markets. So they will release lots to us that we'll be able to pre-sell before they come out of the ground to our clients. Some of the things we really like about this new model that we have is we have builder warranties that are in place. If anyone's built a home, a brand new home before, you kind of know how those work. That's nice. You basically have a bumper-to-bumper warranty, so to speak, on your investment for that first year. Also, the builder is also doing a 1-year rent guarantee. Basically meaning that if after 60 days the house has not rented, they'll actually cover every month of rent until it's rented for up to a year. So that's just another guarantee, kind of, so to speak, that makes the houses as predictable as we can possibly get them. I think Tyler kind of mentioned that the first house that we're doing is we have 4 townhouses that we're doing in Charlotte. The first one just rented today, and the certificate of occupancy date isn't even occurring until Friday. So they're able to get out there and start marketing the houses early, and the move-in date's going to be a few weeks after that. So they're already kind of off and running on the renting side, and so far we're really excited about it. And like I said, we're not going to probably do as much volume quite yet because we're just going to get lots as they come available to sell. But it's a great opportunity, and we're really excited to be able to offer it to our clients. What's going on in Charlotte?
And then did you mention what's purchase price looking like?
So purchase price for what we've purchase price so far for what we've done is our townhomes the first group of townhomes in the first phase that we were selling were about $144,900 on those 4 townhomes. We also had in another development there in Charlotte, the first phase that was offered to us, the single family homes. The single families are probably about 1,800 square feet. The townhomes are probably about 1,450 to 1,500 square feet. The purchase price on the single-family homes was $180,400. Now, those prices will be changing at some point when they release new phases for us to be building on. So the clients of ours that kind of jumped in first and took that risk in a new market with us, they're already going to be getting some appreciation as those next phases creep up higher. We don't know for sure what those are going to be released to us at. Obviously, for us, the numbers still have to work for our clients. And the other good part about it is Charlotte's been experiencing a good rate of increase on the rental side as well. So we're really confident those rents are going to scale up nicely, and they still always have to fit in our done-for-you real estate model investing box. So we're excited about what's going on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. So just to kind of summarize, the markets that we're in right now, there is definitely a reason why we're in those markets. They're going to vary in purchase price. They're going to vary in total out of pocket. They're going to vary in acquisition process. This is why we love to do game plans with folks. And by the way, if you're an existing client, I'm going to show you an email address later. Email us and let's set up the next conversation with the project manager. Dive in a little bit deeper into these markets. If you're just kind of new to us, let's get together and let's just do a game plan and see where you're at, what could potentially be possible, what markets are going to be right for you. Because in general, that's what we get to do in the game plan, is it's all customized to you based on some of what you've seen and some of what you're trying to accomplish and the resources that are available to you. Everybody doesn't fit into the same box. And that's why we have different markets that all have awesome conditions surrounding them so that we can do what's best for you. Carson, is there a question online?
Yes, and you might have already answered it. This is a little delayed. They're wondering if Charlotte, are they all townhouses?
Okay, so the question online is, in Charlotte, are they all townhouses?
And so the first batch that we got 4 townhouses that were available for our clients to sell and 8 single-family homes. I think it'll probably be about that ratio as the next phases get available.
And follow up to that, single family, are they ranch style?
So the follow-up question was, the single-family residences, are they ranch style?
They're 2-story homes. 2-story homes.
Yes.
So you guys are based in Utah?
Uh-huh.
Not Utah.
Why? That's a great question. Why not Utah? So the question is, we're based in Utah. Why not Utah? And by the way, when we started the company, everything we did was in Utah. And it doesn't mean that there's not still potential here in Utah. We do have agents in-house that if you want to invest in Utah, we absolutely can facilitate that process here in Utah. Generally speaking, we're not seeing some of the numbers that we're able to get in some of these other markets. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Honestly, the biggest part of it is the purchase price. So a lot of the homes that were, for the average kind of done-for-you real estate box, that kind of standard single-family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 to 1,800 square foot house, there's just not a lot of markets that we felt comfortable putting our clients into that were cheap enough that could compare to these markets. Meaning a $150,000 house in Salt Lake, in a very, very different market than a $150,000 house, a different neighborhood than a $150,000 house in Orlando.
Which means different rents, which means different overall cash flows.
The median home price in Utah is $300,000. In these markets, the median home price is closer to $150,000, and rents are comparable. So you're getting, half the out-of-pocket cost for double the return on your investment.
Right.
So just to kind of recap what Steve said for everybody at home. So the median home price in Utah, he said, is $300,000. The median home price in some of these other markets is around $150,000 with rents comparable. So you're really plain and simple making more money, more bang for your buck in some of these other markets than in Utah. However, if you're in love with Utah and you really do want to invest here and you don't mind a higher purchase price, we do have resources if you want it. And by the way, that also goes for any of you that are in Utah. If you're looking for primary residences, that may be part of the game plan. That the game plan is, first we're going to go and buy a primary residence somewhere here, and we can go get the right type of property that's going to play into a longer term game plan. You have resources available to you right here through Done For You.
We do have a brokerage that's affiliated with our company as well. We do quite a bit of local deals, but yeah, most of the investing is all kind of out of state. But we do have quite a few that we'll work with here. So.
And just one more comment before we conclude this section. Remember I told you that you walk through one door and Done For You Real Estate is all right here. That means that our offices are here. That means that Brandon is here. And there's many times when I've seen our local clients or clients that have come out of state, they walk in and they talk to Brandon and they ask him questions. Now he's really busy buying a bunch of real estate, but you have people available to you. Everybody's accessible because, again, this is about you. It's not about us. And if we can facilitate your overall game plan, that's how we succeed as a company, by helping you do the right thing again and again and again, and over the long run, be able to kind of transform the financial life that you have right now, moving towards the one that you're hoping for, utilizing something as simple as single-family residential real estate in the right markets and the right prices with the right set of conditions, where the vast majority of the work is done for you, so you don't have to be the one trying to figure it out and hitting all the pitfalls. Any last words before we kind of conclude the market section?
I don't think so. Any last questions out there?
Yeah,
sir.
Go ahead.
Do you do any multifamily, duplexes, fourplexes, apartment buildings?
A little bit. We're just barely starting to get into. We have done some. Well, the townhomes. They're actually, joined units, but 2 separate tax IDs, so they're owned individually outside of that. In Memphis specifically, we are doing some duplexes that kind of make sense. For us, we kind of wanted to keep our model as consistent as we possibly could between all of the markets. So single family homes are what we do. We've done thousands of them. We feel like it's been a solid model for us. Where it makes sense, we have deviated from that a little bit, and we're continually looking for better opportunities, but we haven't done any apartment complexes yet. Like I said, we have done a couple duplexes, haven't done any fourplexes yet. I think we've done some things locally here for people that's just what they want to invest in, and we can help them here. But in terms of the replicating model that we're doing in these other markets, we really want to stick to what we did best, and that's the single family. So that could change down the road. Like I said, Memphis, we're starting to do more duplexes where they make sense, but usually it's just the single families.
The idea is we want it to be predictable and consistent. We want it to save you some time, effort, and money, and we want to make sure that it does the right thing for you. And so that's why we have a team that's constantly on top of it. And that's the beauty of being an association, getting the game plan, moving forward, and just being in association with us, because we get to keep you up to speed and up to date so that whatever is going to be the best opportunity right now for your game plan is what's available to you, which is awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Brandon Grange.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
All right. Well, now you get another real treat, because now you don't have to listen to me anymore for a couple minutes. I'm going to get a chance to welcome up Steve Earle, that awesome guy who I was talking about earlier, and he's going to cover a little bit more of our results. So, we talked about who we are and what we do. People come through the door. You walk through one door. We have all the people and everything that you need to go and do real estate. That real estate is done in markets that fit into a box, so it's predictable and consistent. So then the question becomes, over the last 9 and 10 years, have we achieved results for our clients? And what Steve Earle is going to come up and talk about is that very thing. So ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the magnificent Steve Earle!
You're fine. You're fine. All right. So I'm literally going to be like 3 minutes, because I'm just going to share with you a few of our accomplishments over the last couple of years, and then Tyler's going to come up and share some of those examples that he was talking about earlier this evening. So as far as like who you're working with, as a company, we've delivered about 3,500 properties to our clients over the last several years. We have about 2,200 properties under management. Our clients have come to expect a 7 to 14% cash-on-cash return. On a monthly basis, we deliver about $750,000 in net proceeds to our clients combined. And combined growth or equity that our clients have experienced over the last several years is about $75 million. That's a conservative number. And to me, probably the most important number is that more than 50% of our business year over year is repeat business. So what that tells me is that's just validation that the program, it works pretty good. And so I wanted to share that with you just so that you kind of get just a snapshot picture of what we've done over the years, and the fact that what's really neat about being able to kind of quote some of those statistics is that at this point, we have clients who got a game plan 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago, and now they've actually accomplished their goals. We're not just projecting into the future, right? So when we first started the business, it was, this is what we think our clients are going to do. And now we literally have hundreds of clients who have accomplished, they've arrived at that point. Kind of the story that Kevin told earlier, the guy he met on the street who was helping people move, and he'd made his goal happen. And so I'm going to invite Tyler up, and he's going to share just three basic examples of clients who've come on board, and it's worked for them. And we'll share those and move on to the next thing. Thanks, Ty.
Okay, so I'm going to pull these up really quick. And I tried to find 3 examples that kind of cover all the spectrums of the starting point that I talked about earlier. Do I have a click? I can't shine on that screen, huh? You can't see it? I'll just point this way. Can you guys see that cursor? If I do that, you can see it? Okay, I'll do it that way. Okay, so like I said earlier, I like plain white things to write on. That's how I think best. So I pulled up some information over the last couple of days on some of our clients, and I'm just gonna call this client case study number 1. But here's what their ride was. So you can see in 2012 is when they first started. That P means purchase, so they bought a house. So if we look on that top row, they bought a house in May of 2012 in Arizona for $202,000, and they put in $48,000. Their cash flow was $275 a month. Okay? Second house they bought was in September that same year in Arizona, $158,000. They put in $35,000, $250 a month cash flow. And then the last house is kind of part of their initial acquisition or purchase, part of their game plan, was bought in Arizona, $144,000, $32,000 down payment, $200 a month. So, and if you look, their next purchase wasn't until 2015. So for 3 years, basically, they were making $725 a month in net cash flow. You guys follow that? Make sense? Then in 2015, they put in some additional money. If you do the math, what 7 times 12 is about $8,000 a year they were getting over 3 years. They got about $24,000 of cash flow, but they added in some additional money on top of that. So they bought 2 more properties right here in Florida for $160,000 and $125,000. They put in $40,000 and $31,000 to get $350,000, $325,000 a month, so an additional $675,000. So after 3 years, they invested $186,000 of cash. They were getting $1,400 a month, which is just under $17,000 a year in cash flow, which represents a 9% cash-on-cash ROI. Okay? Then we waited 2 years, and we went to this client, like we've gone to many of our clients this year, and said it's a great time to sell in Arizona. It could be something to look at. When does your current lease expire? And let's make sure we get together 90 days before that expires and make sure we're clear on what your options are, so you are educated if you decide to sell or renew or release or whatever the decision is. So he sold 2 properties earlier this year in Arizona. He sold the one that he bought for $158,000 and the other one that he bought for $144,000. That $202,000 house is in Gilbert, which actually is an area we didn't buy a whole lot in, and he really likes that neighborhood, and so he didn't want to sell that house. Okay, so he sold these 2 houses. He sold it for $219,000 and $205,000. So I have in parentheses, this was the $158,000 purchase. This is the $144,000 purchase. So he got approximately this amount of cash at closing. He got his down payment back plus the growth. These are accurate numbers besides the fact of I didn't go in and calculate principal pay down and like do it to a T. He had some closing costs, and so I figured those kind of offset with the principal pay down. If any of you guys are super analytical like me and you're looking at, okay, is that exactly how it pencils out? But it's really, really close. So what he did with these 2 is we did 1031 exchange, and he went and bought one house in Tennessee that he just closed on last month in August for $260,000. This was actually a duplex that he purchased. He put that $93,000 down, and he's getting $800 a month on that house. And then he bought one of these North Carolina houses. He put $96,000 down, so he's going to get $625 a month. So more than the average monthly cash flow that Brandon and Kevin may have shared with you, because he's putting bigger down payments down. And so he's getting very little mortgages. So now when the dust settles, he's getting an extra $1,425 a month. So we go back to the original numbers. He invested $186,000. His current monthly cash flow is the $1,425 plus the 3 original houses he still has. So it's $2,375 a month, which is $28,000 a year. Now we divide that into the original investment of $186,000, and he's getting a 15% cash on cash annualized return. If we look at the equity growth from the initial purchases and then rolled over into the next two purchases, the properties have grown about $250,000 in appreciation he's seen in his portfolio. Of course, you don't realize that until you sell. He's done that on 2 houses, and so I carried that over into those 2 houses because he rolled it over, and he's got significant equity in those houses. But this is just the growth. So this represents the amount you bought it for versus what it's worth now. Okay? So this is one example. This individual obviously had some pretty significant resources to work with out the gate to buy 3 initially and then 2 more within 3 years and add in additional money, but they had a couple $100,000 to allocate towards starting their real estate portfolio, and you can see how it's performed. This example, and I really like this example. If you look at it, primary, young couple willing to move. And not many people are willing to do that to build a real estate portfolio. But, so here's what they've done. In 2012, they bought a house here in Orem for $132,000. You can't buy houses anymore in Orem for $132,000. Not the nicest house, not in the best neighborhood, but a house that worked for them. They put down $4,620. So that's the amount of money that they had to put down towards that house. They had no cash flow. However, they moved in 2015 and they converted this house into a rental. And they ended up cash flowing $450 a month on this particular house, which you calculate the ROI versus a $4,600 initial investment is phenomenal. So they bought this house that happens to have an accessory apartment, and we did that on purpose. So we paid $210,000. They put $7,300 down, so it took them about 3 years to save enough money for another down payment. And they decided to live in the basement and rent out the top. No, sorry, that's on the last one. They lived up top and rented out the basement, so they got $900 a month out of that basement, which covered 2/3 of their mortgage on this house. Then, the next year, they moved, and they actually got a little line of credit on this house in order to get this $8,500. Okay, because they weren't able to save it. It's because they haven't really made much more money throughout this whole process. They're both hourly wage earners, and maybe they're making another $3 an hour or something, but nothing significant has changed in their income. However, they had good equity in this house, so they accessed some of that for that down payment. So they bought this house for $225,000. Nice house down by kind of Sleepy Ridge Golf Course, east of it, so not in the newer areas, but a nice area just west of Geneva, down in South Orem. And they live in the basement in this house that has a basement apartment, and they rent the upstairs for $1,200 a month. So at the end of the day, these guys not making very much money, but living responsibly, frugally, not taking on too much debt so they can qualify for these mortgages. And I mean, they cut coupons. I know them really well as we've worked with them over the years, and they're really responsible with what they have coming in. And so today, their total monthly rent income is $35.50 a month in these three houses, which represents $42,600 a year, which is more than the annual income of the primary wage earner in this house. They've invested $20,500, so there's their ROI. It's kind of silly to even look at because they're making such a significant return on their investment. And their current mortgage, so the mortgage on their current primary is $1,700 a month. So you can see they're bringing in $1,200 on it, so they're living in this house for $500 a month. But if you look at just big picture, they're $35.50 minus $1,700 is about $1,700, so they're living for free and making $1,700 a month if you look at it that way. So this is just a really neat story of somebody who's just started small and they were disciplined and they built into what they have today. And honestly, the amount of money they make from doing this versus when they clock in and clock out it's phenomenal. And when I share this example or we talk with other employees around the office of, oh man, if those guys can do it, anybody can do this. Because they're not particularly educated. There's no college degrees involved in this household or anything. They just got into the system, learned it, bought into it, and they've gone out and executed it. So it's pretty neat. Now I'm going to go to the entirely different spectrum. This was a client that we had out of California. And he owned a commercial property that he'd had for a lot of years. It was his primary form of income. And once he got to know us, he got comfortable enough with what the plan looked like working with us versus what he was getting right now. So he sold the property for $3.3 million, and this was end of last year. No, this was all this year, actually. This was first quarter this year. He sold it. He owed $500,000 on the house when he sold it, so he got approximately $2.8 million in cash, and we did that in a 1031. For those of you that are familiar with 1031s, you got time restraints, and the goal was to go buy 22 houses for this guy, which we had to identify within 45 days and then obviously close on within the time frame. And we did. So I just wanted to kind of show you the highlight of where he was at before. Before, he was making on average $10,000 to $11,000 a month that he was taking home from his commercial property. Okay, which was a good ROI for the amount of money he'd owned it for decades. So the amount of money that he'd put into it, it was a good return on that investment. But the amount of money that was sitting in the bricks, that $2.8 million, it wasn't so good. And he lived in California, the standard of living, all kinds of things that he was looking at because he was relocating to Utah down to St. George in the process of doing all this. So he was bringing in about $120,000 a year, which was about a 4.3% return if you look at it against the amount of cash that he had in that investment available to him. We bought the 22 houses, and after, the cash flow ends up being $18,000 a month, and 4 of those houses he bought for his kids. So there's no rental income coming from 4 of those houses. He's nice. Good dad. He wanted to bring his kids, make them close by too. So it's a family reunion in St. George is what's happening. So he's getting $18,000 a month, and we diversified him in every market that we have because we had to get him the product in the time frame that we had to get it. But represents $216,000 a year, 7.8% return. Unleveraged for the most part. We carried over a little bit of leverage, but for the most part, he was paying cash for those houses, which was an 81% increase in the performance of his portfolio. And then he also really liked the concept of being diversified, owning different houses in different markets, and one vacancy you can absorb really easily, or multiple vacancies, or small repairs instead of having all of his eggs in one basket. So this is an example of 3 people kind of as they came in. We went through that game plan process. We analyzed. I mean, with this guy, we spent months and months and months getting him comfortable with what we would be able to do and gaining his trust so we'd actually be able to perform on the 1031. Because if you don't perform on that 1031, that's a costly mistake from a tax standpoint for him. And it's interesting because the way it's set up now, he was real hands-on with this property, and he was stressed about having 20 properties in different states all over the country, and he sleeps a lot better at night today because everybody's doing everything for him, and he's got the teams in place. Question?
Yeah, question on the 1031. What's the time frame? Do you have a year?
45 days to identify, 180 days to close.
180 days.
Yeah. Yep. Any other questions? Okay. Hopefully this is useful just to kind of see it full circle and looking back what it looks like as they go through the process. One question in the back.
So we have tried to do 1031 exchange before, and you sent us to someone else who and it didn't end up being worth it. So are you doing those in-house now?
No, so we don't do 1031 exchange in-house at all. There's a third party that has fiduciary responsibility, exchange companies, and they charge fees. We usually use First American Exchange. They're a big national company, but there's hundreds of companies that facilitate 1031s, and they all have different fee structures. They're all pretty similar though. So where it wasn't worth it, and we can talk offline, I'd be curious to see if the actual exchange didn't work the way we wanted to, or afterwards it was discovered the tax situation, there wasn't a big benefit by doing it or whatever. But from a fee structure, they're all pretty similar, the companies. Good question. Another one?
So the second example was local.
Yes, those were all local.
Was it challenging to find those that would meet their needs because they were not high income?
So the question was if it was local, so in Utah, Salt Lake County area, which the answer is yes. And then was it challenging to find the inventory? Yes. That inventory at that price point goes fast right now, especially inventory with accessory apartments.
Do they manage themselves?
Yes. These guys do manage those themselves. Yeah. But yeah, $180,000 to $260,000 houses in Utah County right now, you know, days, and they're gone. So we just have to be really, really fast. Yep. Good questions. One of those we were able to find, the house wasn't actually on the market. So it's through some contacts that we have, and we were able to find it that way for him. So, good. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to turn it back to Kevin, and we'll wrap things up.
Thank you, Tyler. Give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that because you could just kind of see how it all works. So we're about at the end of the night. So we're going to do one thing real quick, and then I'm going to have Steve come up and he's going to wrap the night for us. So we've been talking all night about a game plan because that's the key. If you're online, the key is you got to get a game plan. It's always been about the game plan. And you might remember, what's the price tag on the game plan? Completely non-obligatory and totally free. And so what we wanted to do is make it available to everybody because we can jump on the phone, we can meet in person. We have lots of people that know this really well. And the whole idea is it doesn't matter where you're at in your experience. In the event that you've done real estate with us, like the Wards have, great, let's do another game plan. Let's see where we're at. If you haven't done real estate and you're still just trying to get a feel for if you want to even work with us, let's talk. Let's answer all your questions. Let's show you pro formas. All of that happens by doing this. You just email, okay? So you're going to email gameplan@dfy-realestate.com. So again, that email is gameplan@dfy-realestate.com. And when you do that, you're going to be contacted in the next day or so. And we're going to set up a time so that we can just sit down and have a game plan. We want that for you because we want you to be part of these success stories. Because we know what it can do. We've been doing it for 10 years. And we want to do it more. Because I think we have an obligation to do just that. We know what we know, and a lot of people out there don't know what we know. We have the ability, the infrastructure, the company, the team. Really, we feel this responsibility to be able to help you shift from where you're at into something just a little bit better. And we know that we can do it because we've been doing it for years. Now, the last thing I wanted to share with you is I can't wait to give you a copy of my book. And so I don't have the email address up here, but I'm going to ask you to email an address, and then that will be the email that I will send the ebook to you at. And if you're okay with it, I don't just want to send you the ebook, and this goes for everybody online, I'm also going to send you the audiobook. Is that okay? Send you the ebook and the audiobook. So you'll just email, I'm going to have you email the address that I use for the book, and it's just my first name, Kevin, Kevin, at, actually, you know what we could do? You know what we could do? Do this. This will be easier. Just go to this website, okay? flippinfreebies.com. FLIPPINFREEBIES.com. That's where you can put in your email address, and then it will trigger getting you the audiobook and a copy of the virtual or the ebook. Is that okay? So flippinfreebies.com. So with that, I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. And I want to say thank you for sharing your evening with us. Thank you online for tuning in and asking questions and being here. You guys, this place I hope feels like home, because if it's not yet a home for you, I hope it will become one. For those of you who've known us for a while, I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you feel like you can come and be with us and allow us to do the next game plan with you. A game plan is an ever-changing and moving thing. We're going to do a lot of these together. Let's do the next one so that we have the ability to simply move you forward from wherever you're at to wherever you want to go. So with that, I'm going to ask Steve Earle to come up, and he's going to bring it home for us tonight. But from me, thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Earle.
All right, thanks for hanging in there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the evening with just sharing just a little bit about something that I'm pretty passionate about, and that is like our youth, our kids, and this rising generation who are being taught basically nothing about finances and how to, figure things out. They're being taught that you go into massive debt for your education. They're being taught that you get instant gratification for, for everything. Things are just instant. And so we have an opportunity as parents, grandparents, people who have kind of learned some of these things. We get to teach our children. We get to teach our grandchildren. We get to teach, anybody who will listen to us, basically. And so I just wanted to share this basic concept because y'all know this of what's going on with many, not all obviously, but many of our younger people who are coming up. And this is the power that we have. So I want to share an example Tyler shared an awesome example, right, of this young couple who bought 3 primary residences in order to generate $3,550 a month in passive income. Like, pretty amazing. Well, the reality is we can teach even younger individuals to do the same thing. If we teach them, like, when they're 10 and 11 and 12 years old, some of these basic principles of saving and the concept of when you do end up going and making a purchase an appreciating asset, not one that's depreciating. Purchase an asset that can pay you, not one that's going to take from you. So as a personal example, because I had the opportunity to experience this with one of my own children who's grown up. So when he was younger, he actually came and he worked here at Done For You Real Estate. He did a lot of research for us. And so he had this basic job. And so he was saving up money, and he was around us and spent some time with us, and he learned all about this concept of a game plan. And he had made a decision that he wanted to serve a mission for his church. And he knew that he would have to pay for it himself. And so one day he came to me, he's like, Dad, hey, I want my game plan. And he's still a young teenager. And he's like, I want to buy a house. I want this house to, pay for my mission. And so I said, great, let's sit down, let's talk about it. And so he set a goal to purchase a home before he left on this 2-year mission. And so he saved up his money, and he's able to save, enough for a down payment. Now, typically, what people do, whether it's saving for a mission or saving for a car or saving for some other thing, is they take the money that they've saved, which is a great thing, right? A great principle to save money, but then they go and they spend it on that thing. So when somebody serves a mission for 2 years, they're just spending this money down, right? And when they come home after 2 years, they come home to what? Nothing, because they spent it all. But what if you could take that same amount of money and put it into an asset that made your monthly payment for you? And that was the idea that we talked about. So he was able to purchase one of our properties in Arizona. This was in 2011. And he bought this home for $86,000. So he had enough for a down payment. He had had a job long enough. He was able to qualify for lending. So it was about $16,000 down. He put another $4,000 into it. So he's about $20,000 into it. The home happened to pay it netted him about $400 a month. Well, that happens to be about what it costs to serve this particular mission. So he went down to El Salvador, and he was there for 2 years, and every month this house was kicking out $400, and it paid for him while he was gone. So he gets home, and he's talking to me, and he's like, so Dad, should I sell this house and pull my money out and go use that for school? And I said, well, I had the home appraised recently for you, and it had increased in value by about $70,000. This was in the Arizona market when things kind of went up after it crashed. So while he's volunteering and serving, he made $70,000. And so I said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to pull that money out and use that for school? I said, what are your goals? I asked him what his goals were, and he said, well, I want to own 8 properties by the time I graduate. So I said, well, don't sell your home then. Refinance it and use that cash to purchase some additional homes. So that's what he did. And he actually, when he got home, he had to work for another year to get that, the income going again and to be able to qualify. And so he ended up refinancing, and he bought 2 additional properties. One of the properties that he purchased was a home here in Utah, actually. And shortly after that, he got married. And so similar to that other couple, they lived in the basement, rented the upstairs. And so their rent on a monthly basis was about $200 a month to live in this nice home. And following that, he was able to save up a little bit more money. He bought an additional property. So to date, and so I'm bringing up to date, he owns 4 properties, but it's 5 doors because one of them is a duplex. As a 26-year-old still in college, he has 4 properties that are paying him more than $2,000 a month in passive income. And it's a great start to the rest of his life, right? And that's the kind of thing that we get to teach our children. And along the way, he renovated some of these properties, and he got to figure out, well, if I spend this much money on a renovation, can I increase the rent this much, and what's my return on investment going to be? And he got to figure out all of those things and have some real-world life examples. And so, generally speaking, when we teach our children some of these principles, we get to show them the power of doing things, I'll just say the right way. And that's probably the most powerful thing that I feel like I get to leave my kids. It's not, a monetary inheritance. It's a legacy of knowledge, of education, of understanding and experience at a very young level. So somebody doing that type of thing, imagine what they can accomplish by the time they're in their early 30s. Instead of paying off massive student debt until they're 35 or older, they're in a position where they can really contribute to society at a much younger age. And imagine if we have a whole generation of young people doing that kind of a thing, what can we accomplish as a country? And so those are the types of things that I get really excited about, really passionate about. And so I wanted to just leave that with you to give, it's kind of food for thought. I've had lots of conversations with grandmas and grandpas about this, and they get all excited about helping their grandchildren and so on. And so it's just a really neat thing that as we build an army of individuals, like-minded individuals, we get to teach this up-and-coming generation. So with that, I want to end the evening just thanking everybody for coming tonight. It's a long time to sit for 3 hours, but it's shorter than 3 days. And I hope that it gave you just, that taste of what there is to come. If you'll sit down, get a game plan, move forward, take some steps. There's tons of stuff left to learn, right? But the beauty of what we're doing is that you don't have to become that expert. You just have to become knowledgeable enough to make good and educated decisions. And you get to utilize your team, the Done For You team, and your project manager. You get to be the CEO of your company. You get to make the decisions. You get to say, okay, I need you to do that. I need you to do that. I need you to do that. As opposed to you going out and trying to do everything yourself. So with that, good night. Thanks, everybody online for hanging in there throughout the whole evening. Hope you have an enjoyable evening. Good night.
Put your bad memories to bed.